the greatest moment in my life.
Hello.
Hello, sir. How are you, you sick man?
Mate, honestly, for those who are joining us now or listening on the podcast version, I may sound a bit bunged up and gross and horrid and so on, but it's because I've just had an absolutely crazy mad sneezing fit completely out of nowhere. And it went on for about 10 minutes and just completely disabled me. My shoulders hurt, my neck hurts. I'm just like unbelievable. So now I can barely see and I'm bunged up as hell. So I apologise in advance for me looking kind of stoned, I guess, looking in the image back in there. I don't know if I've been on something, Max, do I?
I mean, I can't rule that out, to be fair.
Well, you know, it is possible, I guess. I do come from Gloucester, drug capital of. Anyway, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever and whenever you may be listening or watching from. This is Chain Wrestling Live with Mags and Si, a Radio Tekkers production. I am the bunged up and sneezy Si, and with me, as always, is the Screwed Brett. To my Sean's apparent regret, yeah, okay, he doesn't regret shit, does he? Let's be honest. The WWF backstage conspirators. To my angry list of listeners. My goodness, Magsy, our lot are a narky bunch, aren't they? All the responses we got to this week.
I know, Jesus Christ, some of the pet peeves that they had. Yeah, well, but we will get to that.
Crazy. A podcaster who is the only Coco Beware stroke Davros impersonator in the world. Is a very niche market and he makes some money from it. Lord Mags, how are we this week, my friend?
Exterminate. Yeah, I'm doing good, especially considering I apparently now have no legs. Matt from Five Nerds keeping up that story totally concocted in his own head that I have no legs and that equals untold podcasting riches, apparently. But yeah, I'm doing good. Yourself?
Apart from basically my face being on fire, yeah, not too bad, mate, to be fair, not too bad. You know, had a pretty decent weekend. Didn't do masses, but it was still, well, no, say that I didn't do masses. Full gear, mate. What a show that was.
Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I don't think it was the all singing, all dancing magnum opus that a lot of kind of wrestling Twitter claims it to be. It was a great show. I really enjoyed watching it. There were things that peeved me about it, but yeah, I had a good time. And finally, we've got that kind of a 3-year almost arc of Hangman Page being the man who was pinned to be the AEW World Champion. So yeah, a really good show. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, mate. It was good as well because I got to watch it live, and my youngest daughter who watches the shows with me dozed off towards the. I mean, it's for those who aren't aware, in the UK it's on until 5 o'clock in the morning over here. So Charlie kind of dozed off about 3:30ish in the morning, I think, and rewatched the rest the next day. So I got to watch her reaction to Hangman Page winning the title rather than watching it. It's just lovely, mate. It's lovely.
Yeah, and the video that you shared in the Tekkers group DM, that it kind of hammers home why we are wrestling fans.
Yeah,
because of that kind of reaction. Yeah, we may become that old and wizened and disillusioned and think we know more about the business than really we do. But it's that reaction from your little and just how excited she was. Yeah, that's why we all become wrestling fans.
Yeah, totally. And I'm now going to be a wrestling fan who's probably in trouble because Charlie was totally unaware until you just said that I recorded her reaction to Hangman Page winning the title. And
Jesus.
Even less aware, of course, that I shared the video with everyone at Radio Tekkers. So, yeah, I imagine if she's in the chat, Charlie, give me a shout. She's going to kick my ass later. So,
Screwed. What can I say?
Yeah, there you go. This week, my goodness, don't we have a massive bumper, huge episode, Magsy? Absolutely fantastic.
I mean, we had to do something to compete with the monolith match of England versus San Marino. So yeah, we have brought our A game today.
I am so over international football, man. Well, the qualifiers and the friendlies and all that, tournaments are great, but England playing the likes of, I don't know, it's like 11 farmers, isn't it, and stuff like that, and it's like Harry Kane with 1 week's wages can buy their entire village and stuff. It's just like nonsense, you know.
I mean, they're making a huge deal of him scoring 4 in the first half. I think that's the first time that someone scored 4 for England since 1993. I think it was Ian Wright. But like
I was getting San Marino as well.
Yeah, he scored 4 against farmers and policemen and part-time firemen. So, someone of his caliber should be scoring 4 goals as a minimum.
Yes, totally. But there we go. Enough about the football. No one's here to hear about that. No one's here to hear about that. Maybe people are here to escape from that.
I mean, we can always keep you updated. We can do a WCW and give you what's happening on the other side so you can stick around.
Good shite. When they bring on Jack Grealish or something for the last 20 minutes, that'll put butts in seats.
I've used that line so many times. It's 7-0, by the way.
7.
Yeah.
See, it's just a waste of time. Catch the goals on Match of the Day. Stick with us and have some proper entertainment. Not watching millionaires strolling around a football pitch. Just bloody nonsense, mate. Bloody nonsense. Anyway, our non-wrestling topic this week came to me via the wife, virtually straight after.
Who's in the chat right now,
yes.
Along with the rest of our loyal family. Matt Willis is been in since 20 to 9. This guy is dedicated. Our buddy Scottish Danny, who I might have a little bit of an announcement about some future plans with him towards the end of the show. Sharon's in. Dan Griffin, hello, sir. How are you? Conor McCabe, hello to you as well. Brett, well, we'll get there. I'm sure we'll. Chris, give you some medical advice. Get a Benny Not down you and you'll be all right.
Get a what?
Benny Not. That's Benedictine and hot water. It's a horrific drink that only really sells here in Burnley. Nobody else drinks it.
They used to sell it at the shop I worked at, but you're right, nobody bought it.
Yeah. According to QR a few years ago, Burnley, and specifically the Manners pub, accounts for like 90% of the worldwide sales of Benedictine.
Where is it made? Is it made in Burnley?
No, I think it's something like a Belgian monastery or something like that, or a Swiss monastery. But yeah,
it's only people in Burnley who buy it.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrific, but it's always used like if you're going out and you've got a bit of a cold or a stuffy nose. The first thing that people in Burnley say is get yourself a Benny or not. It's revolting. It's absolutely revolting.
They missed the trick there, really, aren't they? Thinking about logistically the cost of transporting their goods. They should just uproot the monastery and put it in Burnley, and then they haven't got to pay for distribution, have they?
Well, I mean, that makes sense, but it might be hard to shift a monastery from Belgium or wherever to the UK.
Brick by brick.
Yeah, brick by brick.
Just right on the side. 1, 2, 3 and an arrow, and just move and build brick by brick and rebuild it when you get to
14,000. Who's got brick? 14,556. I'm missing a window here. What's going on?
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so our non-wrestling topic this week was, like I said, brought to us by my good lady, literally straight after last week's episode, funnily enough. And it didn't matter what I tried to think of. Normally I'm sort of at work, I'm doing other bits and bobs and ideas pop in my head, and Magsy sends ideas across. I send ideas across to Magsy and we discuss what we might do. This week, it was literally, that's the only thing that was in my head. I couldn't think of nothing else. So when I sent it to you, Mags, it was like, well, yeah, let's do that. That sounds great.
Yeah, so because there was no other ideas on the docket.
Yeah,
exactly. Like you said, once that idea was implanted in your brain, it was such a good idea that everything else kind of like paled, I suppose, or you couldn't really think of anything to match up to that. So yeah, it was a great idea.
Even that, I just thought, sorry, I'll do it. I was being lazy. Yeah. So
a little bit of both.
Yeah, maybe. Basically, we are looking at what makes people unnecessarily angry. What little thing, and it's kind of inspired by my partner in crime here's hatred of bubbly chocolate that no one else can really understand.
I knew.
But what kind of inspires that rage inside you? What really gets your blood boiling? What boils your piss? What grinds your gears? Okay, and the best thing we were looking for really was what annoys you that other people don't really get. I mean, we had some people sending in stuff that just pisses them off, which was excellent. Yeah. But then we also had other people sending in stuff, like I said, that other people may not necessarily understand why they get so cross about it. And we had so many responses, Max, didn't we? We have a angry group listening to us.
Yeah, I mean, these topics are cool, but it brings out the vitriol and the hate from our family. So yeah, it's ridiculous. Oh, by the way, it's 8-0 now. Matt and Dan doing the Lord's work. Tyrone Mings, who's stealing a living as an Aston Villa player, never mind playing for England, has got in the goals.
I used to know his dad.
Well, I'm sorry for your loss.
No, he played for Gloucester City. No, I don't mean he's dead. I don't mean I used to know his dad and he's passed away. No, he used to play for Gloucester City in the 90s. And I used to work at Gloucester City when I was like 15, 16. Yeah, and his dad, A.D. Mings, played up front. And there's still a big flag now at the T end, the Gloucester City end of the ground, that says A.D. Mings, but he can't help it.
Was here.
No, A.D. Mings, but he can't help it. And that's what they used to say. You know, and it's he was pretty half decent goal scorer, not bad. Like scored one of the most important goals in our history in front of 4,000 sellout fans, mate. 4,000 sellout at Meadow Park, brilliant stuff.
Great news. Oh, I've no issue with them as people. I just don't think Tyrone Mings is a good footballer. He keeps James Tarkowski out of the England squad, and that's ridiculous.
Do you think that's because Tarkowski doesn't sound like he's English?
Well, it's because he plays for Burnley, and Burnley are very unfashionable as a team.
But with a surname like Tarkowski, he could be like playing for Russia or somewhere, couldn't he? Or
I think he's got Polish ancestry. I think.
Okay.
Chris in the chat may be able to enlighten us more.
Okay, no worries. We're back on the football again, mate. I don't want to talk about football.
You want to talk about what pisses everybody off.
I'll tell you what pisses me off, football, right? We had an incredible response, and added to that, we have possibly one of our biggest, most untapped wrestling topics for us anyway, that won the poll that we'll get to later. But it turns out Mags and I have both done a little bit of extra research this week because we're bloody professional and good at what we do.
Yeah, so for context, what I normally do when we're talking about the matches, I take bullet points just to kind of like remind me of stuff that I wanted to mention. But other than that, I freeform it. By the way, it's now 9-0. With Bellingham getting on the score sheet. I think we've got a bit of a competition in the chat between Matt and Dan to see who can give us the scores first. But yeah, 9-0 now England. But yeah, I tend to take bullet points rather than like make huge like wads of notes. But there's so much to dive into in the lore around this match that I've got a kind of full spreadsheet of stuff that of points that I want to talk about, and that's before we even get to the match.
And I've got paper.
You've reverted back to the dark ages.
I am, oh mate, it gets on my nerves to open these windows and all this sort of stuff, you know. So, and Sharon is 100% spot on in the chat there. This is a wrestling podcast after all, despite what numerous people may think that, you know, we normally go an hour and a half and end up talking about wrestling for 20 minutes.
We don't want to do that. We do that every week without fail.
That is true. Just to be clear, I'll keep muting my microphone because I'm feeling a bit grotty. So if at any stage I'm talking and you can't hear me, Mags, give me a shout and let me know that I've not unmuted myself. I will. It's going to happen. Okay, so we shall do what we normally do and run through Twitter. Well, not just Twitter. I had a couple of WhatsApp messages. We actually had somebody comment on Facebook as well, Mags. So I'll run through all of these in the order they arrived into us.
By the way, it's still 8-0. Bellingham's goal was ruled out for offside. Cool. Nice.
We will start with Radio Tekkers buddy Chris at Chris_BFC_. He says, and the first one is football orientated, not beating the first man on a corner. Yeah, that annoys me, drives me mad.
Yeah,
people cracking their knuckles.
I mean, that one, I do that all the time. I can't help it. It's just a kind of habit I have. But yeah, I can understand why it winds people up.
Our Libs is terrible for it. Like every joint in her body, she'll stand there and just go click, 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 like she's unfolding herself. It's really, really bad.
And it is a myth that you end up with arthritis because of it.
Just drives me nuts, though, mate. Just sits there and I'm just hearing it, just crack, crack.
I mean,
crack.
I'm tempted to crack my knuckles now just to wind everybody up, but I'll hold off.
Chris says yes, not being the first man on a corner, people cracking their knuckles. Matt Willis.
That's a popular one. I don't see how he doesn't wind people up.
That's not come from me, Matt. Okay, just bear that in mind, my friend. Dan Griffin at Dan Griffin 21, good friend of the show, says here, I get irrationally angry at Toru Yano. Is that how you say it, Yano?
Oh, Yano, from New Japan.
Yes, I like comedy wrestling, but for some reason, Yano's shenanigans just boil my piss. I can understand that. Some comedy wrestling, I suppose any sort of comedy is subjective, isn't it? So it can be funny to one person, ridiculous to the next. I didn't get Orange Cassidy for a long time, but I know people that find him hysterical.
And I think that one of the major issues why people dislike Toru Yano's comedy stick is because in reality he's a really, really good wrestler. Like a really, really talented wrestler. But he's got into this kind of comedy trope and he doesn't hardly wrestle anymore. It's all kind of shenanigans, and it is quite annoying.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. Dan continues, drivers who ignore one-way systems in car parks, they enrage him and they need to just get in the sea. I can appreciate that. That's
and to add to that, drivers who go in the wrong way in petrol stations, that pisses me right off.
Yeah. See, I don't drive, so I suppose I don't get that firsthand. I took a wrong turn in Wolverhampton going to a gig once, the person driving did, and we were just going God knows how far down this road. The traffic lights changed and we had 3 lines of traffic coming towards us and we had nowhere to go. We had to reverse all the way back, and it must have been a good couple of 100 yards. That was a bit scary, mate. That was not good.
Christ.
At the time I was laughing, but I was about 9 cans in, so we the sum up ad, Dan says, and I can 100% get on board with this. This makes me so sodding angry.
I don't know what is the sum up ad.
You do know, you just want me to do it.
I'm being generous. I don't remember what, or if I do know it, I don't remember it certainly.
It's let me just bring this comment up by Sharon here. That one, the advert where they all go, oh.
I remember the advert now. What's it for, though?
People just want to get punched in the throat. I don't know.
That's what it's for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is annoying.
I hate it, mate. Honestly, I could get so cross, like genuinely angry about it. So I've got to try and mute the TV or turn it over or something like that when it's on. It really, really riles me up.
I mean, nowadays with the kind of like the TV on demand and the streaming services we have, adverts in general wind me up.
Yeah,
having to wait for the second part of the program pisses me right off. That really annoys me. Dan just said in the comments, it's the card payment system for small business. Now I know. When he said, "Oh, you can pay by card now," and they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's a terrible advert."
Oh, it drives me mad.
That'd make me want to pay in 2s and 1s on purpose.
Just a big bag of change.
Yeah. Just weighing a lot of shrapnel. Stick that through your card reader, you fucker.
The bag like the thumbtacks from underneath the wrestling ring, just churning out pennies all over the place. Yeah, definitely. Dan continues, in the workplace, I have colleagues who are dirty bastards and often don't bother using the toilet brush to clean away their remnants, and sometimes don't even bother flushing the toilet. It's gross and irritating as hell. No one owns up to it. Yeah, that ain't a good look, is it?
If you leave like a floater, or if you leave like the mellow yellow, you are a scruff. You're an absolute scruff. There's no reason to not flush. It literally takes 2 seconds.
Mate, part of my job cleaning at the moment, one of the first things I do
Oh,
is
with kids as well in a school. I bet that's horrible.
I've got a set of girls' toilets, a set of boys' toilets, and then a staff toilet. The staff toilet tends to be all right. The boys' toilet tends to be gross. The girls' toilet, oh my God, it is the worst by a mile. It is shocking, you know? Not a good look, mate.
When I used to be on the committee for a local working man's club, the women's toilets in there were always, every night, the most disgusting toilet.
Yeah.
Women, when they are out on the lash, are animals, absolute animals.
I don't think any of these kids are on the lash during the day or anything. I think it's,
Lost her.
Well, yeah, fair point. There's probably a bar in the school that I haven't seen.
Instead of a tuck shop.
Yeah, and the DT class, the design technology class, is showing them how to make the false IDs to go into the bar
and how to brew your own moonshine.
Yeah, and they all do photography classes now, so they can make their own passport photos, change the date of birth on it. So, Millwall Chris at Millwall Chris 1 on Twitter, good friend of the show. He says Louis Walsh. That's all. That's simple as that. It's Louis Walsh, he said, annoys him. So
he also had a second one as well. That stupid yogurt advert that has Nicole Scherzinger in. I don't mind it now that Dina Asher-Smith and Laura Muir do it, but how many times can she be in a situation where she gets yogurt on her nose? It's ridiculous.
So now there's other people doing it. He doesn't mind. But when Nicole Scherzinger did it, is it more of an issue with Nicole Scherzinger than it is the advert itself, maybe?
Maybe he just wasn't a big fan of the Pussycat Dolls.
Yeah, she could sing mine, that lass. I'll tell you that. She did a really random duet with Alice Cooper. As it sounds, right? But the most random thing about it, if I remember correctly, I'd have to check the CD. I don't know if I've got it up here with me. I think it might be downstairs. On it, Slash from Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
He did a solo album. And his first solo is that solo albums now have got a singer with him and a band and so on. But his first solo album had lots of different vocalists. So Ozzy Osbourne did a track, Lemmy from Motorhead did a track, the Lass from Black Eyed Peas did a track, and so on. And as a bonus track on one of the extra releases of the album, it's Slash's album, but the vocalists are Nicole Scherzinger and Alice Cooper.
Okay.
How weird is that? But it's brilliant. It's an absolute storming track.
Yeah, I don't mind sometimes those kind of like cross musical style fusions. There was an interesting story this week about a famous brass band, and I think the band's called Brass Against, and their kind of shtick is doing gigs where they do rock music, like covers of rock songs, but with brass instruments like saxophones, tubas, all that stuff. And the lead singer, she was desperate to go to the toilet, so she said, have you heard the story?
I have, but you carry on, Magsy. I know exactly where you're going.
And
so did she.
Yeah. Do not look up this on Twitter or anywhere like that because it's horrific. But essentially, she told the audience she was desperate to go to the toilet, and there's no way she was going to make it back to the porter cabins backstage. So, would someone want to come on stage and essentially be a human toilet? So, a bloke volunteered, and she genuinely just crouched over his face and let rip. And she was very desperate because there was a hell of a lot of it, and she kept singing as well. And I think she was singing a cover of a Rage Against the Machine song as well, which is horrific. But he enjoyed himself.
I won't go where you tell me.
I don't think it was actually that one, but it was certainly Rage Against the Machine song. But Jesus Christ.
Oh man, that's not a good look.
But he loved it. He absolutely loved it. And he spat out, to link it to wrestling, he spat out the pee like Triple H.
Anyway. Oh my goodness. That's not a good look. Oh, let's move on, mate. That's gross. Danny,
Thanks for that. Thanks for your input there, Millwall Chris.
Brilliant stuff. Appreciate it as always, buddy. Always appreciate it. At Scottish Juggalo on Twitter. In 2007, WWE made the decision to remove all references of Chris Benoit or Stevie Richards, as he refers to him here. So what did both Triple H and HBK do? Use his crippler crossface submission hold for the next 3 solid years. That really pissed him off back then. I can appreciate that, I suppose. But at the same time, it's a good move. Do you want the move to die out?
Well, yeah, that's it. And I suppose them using it kind of deflects it away from being Chris Benoit's move, being so people don't instantly link it to him. But Triple H and the HBK, I mean, we'll get on to their politicking later on. It could have easily been a case of, oh, well, he's not using it anymore. We'll steal that move.
Yes, politicking indeed. Good Cop, Bad Cop Wrestling Podcast at Good Bad Wrestle on Twitter says here, my youngest leaving the front door open and not closing it behind him. He's just glad that lights being left on doesn't seem to bother him that much. I'll tell you what, I mean, leaving the front door open's not cool anyway, is it? Because where I am, anyone would just walk in. But the leaving the lights on thing, that drives me batty, mate. I get out, the kids have gone to school, and it's like, I can hear my dad's voice in my head because it used to drive him mad. But the lights are just left on everywhere, and it's just like, why? Just turn. You literally walk past the switch on your way out the door.
That grinds me to this very day. The amount of times I can walk, say, from my kitchen up to the bathroom and just switch, turning light after light after light. The front door thing, that's not a big issue for me because we've got kind of like a double front door where we have like a vestibule and then another front door. So one of them. So we have a front door like to the outside, then like a vestibule. Like,
I like the way you explained to me where your front door is going. It's going to the outside.
But then in the vestibule is essentially where we put courts and our kind of like
it's like a porch.
Well, it's a vestibule. It's not a you couldn't go and put like a seat and chairs there. You couldn't like sit there and watch the world go by. It's
like a little room where you put your shoes. Yes, that's a porch. What's a vestibule? I don't think I've heard that before.
Well, that's what it's called. It's a vestibule.
Are you sure?
It's very much a vestibule.
Or are you just trying to sound posh because you're a lord now?
How dare you? But no, it's where we essentially hang our coats, put our money boots and stuff like that. And then we have another front door, which that one tends to always be closed. So that the front door thing doesn't really bother me, but the lights, it grinds. It absolutely grinds.
Yeah. Drives me mad. Absolutely kills me. So if you're listening, kids, sort it out.
Look at this. Why do I put up with this? Lord Mags, owner of the real Forbidden Door. Look at the Lord of his big words. And Mags also has gilded gates and a half-mile driveway to contend with before hitting the portcullis at his Lord's manor. I do have a drive, by the way. I don't have portcullis gates, but we have been talking about maybe getting some of those like gates that open automatically.
Why?
Oh my God.
Do we not mock you enough? Do you just want to chuck more ammo into that gun?
I just lob up those easy low balls on and people just knock them out of the park.
You want gates that open themselves. Okay. All right, no worries. Anyway, I'm just going to store that up. I'm sure that'll be recycled back out at some stage. All the way from Australia, our good buddy Chris Mangle at Mangle_Chris. He says, how long is the show? So I'm guessing he's got a lot of things that annoy him.
We got that a couple of times. I think William Kitchen as well said it.
Yeah.
So these are angry people.
They are. It's a narky bunch, mate. To put it simply, all my annoyances come back to one thing. People. Other people. And I feel the same. Yep.
One of my favourite TV shows is a program called The RT Crowd. And there's a scene in that where Roy, one of the characters, says essentially he hates people, and he says, "People, what a bunch of bastards," and that's my mantra for life.
No, I can get on board with that, mate. Totally. I don't need to make any more friends. I've got what I need. You know, I've got.
I mean, even half of your friends are probably just dicks.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
no, that a lot of men annoy me. They know they're living shit out of me, but
I've got a few really good mates, and I've got my family, and that's kind of it, really. That's all I need. And obviously, you, Magsy, and our CWF.
And I annoy you. I annoy you on the weekly.
You annoy me from 140 miles away. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think I would be very antisocial if I didn't have the friends that I made in the first place. If I had no friends now and I was like, I had to make some friends, yeah, I'd be forever alone because I'm just annoyed by people every day.
All the time. I just find myself just looking at people and just going, why? What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you doing? Yeah. Oh, anyway.
Demonetized.
Brilliant stuff, eh? As if the name of the episode wasn't going to get us an issue on YouTube.
Which was also inspired by you. You kind of like forced my arm on that. Even though I think it came from Paul Tolley. But...
It did come from Tolly, yeah. It was funny when I went to look at the link and to share it on the Twitter and Facebook and so on. I didn't twig at first, and I saw the episode name, and I honestly just stood in the kitchen laughing, just crying. I was like, man, that was... And the beauty of it is, to anyone who missed that little conversation between the Chain Wrestling account, yourself, and Tolly on Twitter, they got no idea why the episode's called that.
I think it's actually might be part of Tolly's grab, so I'm sure we can bring it up.
Yeah, okay, no problems. We have more from Millwall Chris. He says, "Glitter, I hate the stuff. I don't mean Gary. He doesn't want to upset Andy from Bang Bang. So you don't hate Gary Glitter?
That's weird.
I thought that would have been a given, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though is what is a shame, and not about Gary Glitter. That's but when you get artists like Lost Prophets, the guy from Lost Prophets, and so on, who have actually recorded some good music, but now it's like you can't listen to it because of what they've done.
So for an example, especially linking to Gary Glitter, me and the wife were watching a program. I think it may have been yesterday, or it may have been over the weekend sometime, and it was essentially about the biggest hits of the 70s. And there was in 1973, one of the biggest hits of the year was a Gary Glitter song. I think it was "Do You Want to Be My Gang" or something like that.
No, we don't.
Yeah, but they were kind of like doing all these kind of breakdowns of these songs and going into that, the history of the bands and how they got to writing the songs and the meanings of the song. When it come to that one, they literally just had to just go straight past it. There was no mention of his name. They literally just put up a 3 seconds of the audio, the title of the song, and just swan by. So yeah, it just goes to show that even though he probably created some really popular music, you can't disassociate the evil that he was, the evil person that he was.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the associations as well, I guess. I mean, mentioning Lost Prophets there, the lead singer was a wrong one. He was a disgusting individual, and the rest of the band, you got to feel sorry for them because they were getting big. They had like Download Festival.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't my cup of tea. They were a bit indie for my liking, but they were doing well for themselves, and they've released an album together since this has happened with a different singer, and it ain't very good, and it's not. And I think they've split up now, and it's a shame because their careers are tarnished by association.
Yeah, and it's disgusting. But how else would you deal with that? I mean, it's not like he's going to say to the band, "I'm going to step away because I'm a bit of a nonce. I do like kiddie fiddling."
A bit.
So yeah, I don't want to tarnish the reputation of the band. Which, and like I said, they were kind of on the cusp of being like stadium size. They were close to being a really, really big band, and that stuff just killed their careers dead.
Yeah. I'll tell you what as well, thinking about stuff like that, Our Lady Peace, who did Chris Benoit's entrance theme, the later one with the vocals and sort of, that's a banger of a record.
It is.
And one of my favorite entrance themes of all time, But I kind of feel weird listening to it now. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I might play it on the show. I don't know. I was going to play it on the show when we did the Benoit triple threat at WrestleMania 20, and I struggled a little bit then. So I might just see what people think in the chat and see how we go from there. But I love that record, but I still now feel weird listening to it because of the association with Benoit himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not even the band's fault. That's that's
it's being tarred with that memory of what the person did.
Yeah. Sick bastards, man.
Yeah.
We have a tweet here from Channel 88. The Twitter handle is @Helmatic85. Thank you so much for getting in touch there. He says, getting a single text message that just says, yo. He's like, what the fuck do you want? Leave it. He leaves it on red. If it's important, that way they will text what they need to say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that, but I imagine if I did, I would get annoyed.
I can kind of put a little twist on that. I really dislike when you get a text message that says ring me from someone who you know, and they're saying ring me. Like, no, you want me, you ring me. I don't particularly want to talk to you, so I'm not going to go out of my way to talk to you. So you want something from me, or you want to chat with me, you do the ringing. Don't have me ringing you. That's ignorant.
Yeah,
that's annoying.
No, I get that. William Kitchen, good friend of the show, at the Appliance 180. He says here, there's a little bit of a list. Andy Goldstein, the horse-faced Essex boot from Married at First Sight. Okay.
I don't know him, but clearly William has got a mad beef with Mr. Goldstein.
That's two different people, Max. He's
Oh,
got
right.
Andy Goldstein.
I thought Andy Goldstein was the horse-faced Essex boot.
Well, perhaps he is. Perhaps I'm misunderstanding. Perhaps Andy Goldstein was on Married at First Sight, and I just missed it.
I don't know, but Jesus Christ, the poor horse-faced Essex boot. Have we got a name for this this Essex boot then?
No, it literally just says horse-faced. I don't know. What we'll have to do is we'll have to bring up the faces of the people who were on Married at First Sight and see which one looks most like a boot.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to do that because programs like that boil my piss. There's no way on God's green earth those people got married at first sight. It's so scripted, it's unreal, but yet people they believe it, and it annoys.
See, this is reality TV is something that annoys me. I hate the fakeness of it and all this sort of stuff. But that Married at First Sight Australia, the wife
that's the worst one.
Right, the wife got into that one last season or season before, something like that, and I ended up catching some of it, and it dragged me in, Mags. I was dragged in by this storyline of one of the husbands or one of the wives getting involved with somebody else's husband and stuff. And after every episode, I just felt dirty. It was just like, what is this about?
But then you hit the nail on the head when you said what it was. It's a storyline. It's made up, and anyone who believes that it's real, they need to take a long walk off a short pier. Sharon.
Okie doke. Anyway, Andy Goldstein is a guy who works for TalkSport.
Okay, yeah.
And he did
guaranteed wanker then.
Yeah. He did one series of Soccer AM after Lovejoy left.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, he's a twat.
United fan. Yeah. And then this other person is a horse-faced Essex boot from Married at First Sight. People who try to impose veganism on you, organized religion, as opposed to unorganized religion. I suppose, just people
randomly praying in the middle of the road.
Yeah, people turning up all the time at the church, and the vicar just being like, "No, not today. It's Tuesday," where they've got no clue as to when to actually arrive. You know, just all over the place.
You're so disorganized, Father.
Oh, turning up with a Bible in one hand and a Quran in the other. You know, just no clue what's going on. The Scottish National Party. Owen Jones. I don't know who Owen Jones is.
Is that the "We're Walking in the Air" guy?
Yeah, we'll say it is. I don't know. Yeah, I hate him. Flip flops. Flip flops, just randomly. When you got stuff here like political stuff, reality TV
Nationalism.
stars, nationalism, religion, flip flops. Oh, brilliant stuff, William. Getting charged for going for a piss. Yeah, that annoys me when you got to put your 20p or 50p, whatever it is, in the toilets at a train station or something. That's annoying.
Oh, apparently, the walking in the air guy is Ali Jones, so it's a different Jones.
No, you're wrong. You're all wrong. Owen Jones. Okay, who's Owen Jones then? Everybody in the chain wrestling family, the CWF in the chat. Who's Owen Jones then?
So we need to know first of all who Owen Jones is. He's a columnist, apparently, a British columnist. But we also need to know this horse-faced gremlin from Married at First Sight is.
Gremlin?
I added the gremlin. He may not have said gremlin. Oh, he said boot. Sorry,
he said boot. Horse-faced Essex boot from Married at First Sight. So yeah, we need a name so we can see if how much this person looks like. Or tell you what, even better, because obviously me and Magsy are very, very busy. If you people in the chat can find a way of getting a picture of this person and showing us so we can compare to just exactly how much a boot this individual looks like, I'd be intrigued. And finally, William continues, WWE changing authentic theme music on the network.
Yeah, that doesn't I.
Oh, and the BBC.
Oh, just for a last one. Yeah, BBC is annoying, so kind of a politically biased. But yeah, the WWE changing the music, that grinds me, especially when you remember the shows on the pay-per-views, and then all of a sudden it's music that was not attached to that wrestler or attached to that show. Yeah, that pisses me off.
Which is the worst for you? I mean, Rick Rude having his music changed always drives me mad. Yeah,
I hated that one. I can't really think off the top of my head who's they changed massively, but yeah, Rick Rude's a horrible one. But a lot of the kind of the older Jim Johnston ones as well, where it's kind of almost like generic music that these wrestlers get now, and it doesn't fit the characters. Yeah, it's not good. And for the pennies it would have cost for the licensing fee, I don't see why they didn't just stick with the music that they had.
Yeah, at ECW they changed loads, didn't they? Because it was all proper music and that. Yeah. Hogan's music WrestleMania 18 getting changed. That is the worst for me because you lose the reaction from the crowd because they changed the music. You know,
Scottish Danny said Maven having his music changed is a tragedy.
Oh, that was a tune.
Yeah, especially considering he's still in the Royal Rumble right now. Never got eliminated.
Very true.
And apparently he's looking at making a comeback.
Oh, really? I hope he wears the grey jogging bottoms that you get from Primark that he had when he first came into it, as opposed to... Do they have Primark in America?
They'll have some sort of cheap clothing store, I reckon. Dollar store.
Right.
Apparently, okay. I've got to check my phone. Oh, no, you've got to check your phone.
No, Sharon says babe, so she is referring to you. So, I'm checking my phone now. This is great audio content for the podcast.
Matt saying in the chat he hated American Badass by Kid Rock. No, that's a decent tune. I think that's I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, I reckon it's a good tune. I like that. Yeah, works quite well.
So here we go, people. This apparently is the horse-faced boot.
I just sent you a picture as well, Magsy, that Sharon got me one.
Is it the same woman?
Same woman, different picture though.
Okay. But I don't think she's... I wouldn't say boot. Horse-faced, yeah, I can see that. More, I think the issue I'd have is more the slight wonky eye.
It's like wonky eye. Got the Shawn Michaels about her.
And the painted on eyebrows, that's another bugbear. I can't fucking stick painted eyebrows. Oh, and whilst we're at Dan, might as well confirm that he did wear a grass skirt for the Holiday Cane episode that he promised to send a picture of. Now that's more horse-faced. I will concede. That looks like she has just been offered a nose bag.
That might mean something different where you're from to me, mate. You know,
I mean, a nose bag full of like old carrots and apples, not full of the happy clappy powder.
Happy clappy, the marching dust.
The sexy sugar.
Oh dear. Handy T1TF on Twitter. He says he personally doesn't deal with stupidity well. I'm okay with ignorance,
and yet he listens to this show.
Yeah, the fact that he doesn't deal with stupidity well and he puts up with us, Magsy, I think that shows what a trooper he is. He says he doesn't deal with stupidity well. He's okay with ignorance, and there's stuff that all of us just don't know. But just being confident you're right, even though the facts say otherwise, really burns his ass. I can get on board with that 100%. And I'll tell you one that gets me the most is when, and you tend to get it in workplace situations, and I've dealt with it a few times in different places with different people who seem to think they know the law with regards to employment, contracts,
or anything,
and so on.
Anything.
Yeah, and they sort of spike this onto whatever the situation is. For example, a area manager that I was once associated with had a habit of just basically dictating what things we're going to do, and everyone else would just be like, "Oh yeah, okay, I'll get on with it." But I would then question, "Well, hang on a second, that's not right." Or because in previous roles, I've had experience having to deal with that sort of thing myself, and have training in certain situations and do courses and all that sort of boring nonsense from back in the day. So I'd be like, well, that's against the law, or that's not right, or actually contractually you can't force people to do this for no money, or whatever it was. And I just got labelled a troublemaker, but I was always right. So
yeah, is it being a troublemaker if you are doing things for the better of the rest of your team, because they're just clearly accepting something that is totally illegal, and yet you're the troublemaker for saying no, that's wrong. We should be treated fairly, and yeah, people like that annoy me. And people who take stuff that they read off Facebook and now even more so Twitter as facts. We've seen a lot of it with like stuff like COVID. I don't really want to get too political about it, but yeah, those kind of people who annoy me and say, "Oh well, this is like you should be taking this horse medication for COVID." Well, where did you find that out? Oh, I read it on Facebook, and it's like, you're a fucking idiot. Yeah. You're an absolute proper idiot. So yeah, I get where Handy's getting to with that.
The Facebook link there as well. So, talking on Facebook, when a UFC event comes around, but a big UFC event, not just obviously with 5 rounds magazine, you cover all of it.
I know what you're going to say.
And the coverage is fantastic. And the boxing is the same. There's boxing events on all over the world every weekend. But then when Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury fight, all of a sudden, everyone you've known since school becomes a boxing expert for that weekend.
I don't mind. We call them plastics. I don't mind the plastic fans per se. If you can draw more fans into watching MMA or watching boxing, that's cool. If hopefully they'll stick around for the smaller events. But it's when someone who watches Conor McGregor fights or watches Tyson Fury fights, but then they know everything about the whole sport, that just grinds me. And Carlos, who runs the 5 round podcast Facebook page, he's forever getting into like kind of debates about these plastic fans who have watched 10 fights in their life and know everything about it, and yet Carlos has trained in the sport since being like 10 years old, and we've watched UFC since the very early days when it was really unregulated. That grinds him, and he gets into so many kind of like debates about MMA. Yeah, that annoys me. I don't mind you coming in and enjoying the sport, but don't come in and think because you watch one match you're suddenly an expert. That annoys.
Yeah. See, I mean, boxing, I've always enjoyed boxing since I was younger. I like a little bit of boxing. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in any way, shape, or form, but I know enough to sort of agree or disagree with some of the pundits sometimes. And if I don't know, I'll go along with what they're saying, because they in theory should know more than me. UFC, I know even less about. I enjoy the odd scrap. I'll put the odd show on, but it's not my go-to, I guess. So I will listen to the likes of yourself and Carlos, and I will listen to people, for example, a fella called Tristan, who I used to work with, who was a boxing fanatic, and he would know more than I, you know? It's just so annoying, these people, and those who try and point out what such and such did wrong. Oh, Anthony Joshua got knocked out because he did this, this, and this wrong, you know, whilst Joshua's there earning millions, looking like he's been chiseled out of granite and is super fit and has obviously got an incredible amount of talent. And this person sat there with bloody cheese Watsits all down their chin and chest, eating out of a bowl on their sofa with, you know, a can of White Lightning next to him, sniffling away on a bag of freaking, you know, marching powder or something. It's just like, oh, get a grip, pal, you know?
Yeah, this topic has certainly riled the chat. Sharon saying ignorance is one of her biggest issues. Stupidity can be corrected. Ignorance is a choice. Matt saying, yeah, people who are now boxing fans because of one of the Paul brothers, yeah, they annoy. They're so annoying. Millwall Chris saying it's like when England play in a major tournament, suddenly every Tom, Dick and Harry starts telling you where we are going wrong tactically. Yep. I mean, to be fair, we do that on Radio Tekkers, but we never claim to be experts about it. This is just 3 or 4 idiots' opinions about football.
See, I can't get involved in it, mate. Not saying Radio Tekkers, I mean, with stuff like that. I cannot. I see stuff on Twitter, I see stuff on Facebook, and wrestling and football. And I see, I kind of mentioned it on the episode of SJP I did when I was recording on with Todd. I can't get involved in the conversations because sometimes you see something on Facebook or Twitter and you end up in a discussion with these people. And you say, I don't want to say I'm wrong, they're wrong, I'm right, whatever. But yeah, they're fucking wrong. I'm right. I know this, okay? And that sounds very arrogant, I know. But these, I say about boxing and UFC, know nothing about, I listen to people. Football and wrestling, I like to think I know a bit about it. So my opinion, I would hope, would hold a little bit of weight in a discussion. But just experience and how long I've been watching and other things that I've done in my life. When you hear somebody just go, oh, well, they should do this or do that or change to 5 at the back, and you're just thinking, you don't have a fucking clue. I can't say anything because it just goes off, and I get so angry about. There you go. That's something that pisses me off. I get so angry about these idiots to the point where I cannot comment on how wrong they are. Do you know what I mean?
And that's why he's banned from any episodes of Radio Tekkers, folks.
Oh, I get asked on all the time, you sneaky bastard. I get asked on all the time. It's difficult because United games, I want to sit and watch with my lad and that, you know, or my wife if she's home. So it's difficult coming on Tekkers for that. Other teams, I would watch
don't give
it.
a shit about.
I used to watch all the football I could, but now I don't watch anywhere near as much. So I feel that if I came on, I wouldn't know. I don't know half the people who play for, say, Aston Villa anymore because I kind of fell out of love with the game for quite a while.
Yeah, I get that, but then again, on Tekkers, we very rarely talk about the football. We're mainly talking about food or music or anything, and then we'll have a passing glance at the football, kind of like this. How this is a wrestling show, but we very rarely talk about the wrestling.
Yeah, very true, very true. I also don't think I could be able to put up with Tanner and Matt's blatant Liverpool bias. That would drive me batty, mate.
It's annoying. It's annoying.
But there we go. Anyway, that's got to be a t-shirt, I think. Anyway, at UTT Rob on Twitter, Rob says, aside from the government, the refereeing style of Aubrey Edwards. So this intrigued me, and I said, how come that annoys you? And Rob carried on, she draws focus from the match and has started Mizdoing the moves. And that made me laugh because, you know, Damon Mizdow was brilliant, copying the Miz and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, I got no problem with Aubrey Edwards. Perhaps I've just not noticed it. And I wonder if when I watch Dynamite this week, if it'll irritate me now it's been pointed out to me.
Okay, so yeah, I've noticed how I like the as a ref. I just don't think a referee should have so much of a character that she can overshadow the people who she's refereeing. I think that's my issue with her. She's incredibly dramatic with like the things like the 3 counts and the kind of like any kind of big moves. She'll react like way over the top. But this was one of the kind of like nitpicks I had with Full Gear. And like I said, it was a entertaining show, but there were things that really kind of ground me a little bit. The one where she sprinted to the ring, it was such an over-exaggerated sprint, like she was running with her hands like chopping the air.
That's just how she runs.
Maybe then she needs to stop running. And then the other one was
just stop it.
Yeah, just grow up over it. The other one was the Sammy Guevara Jeff Hardy spot off the top of the ladder. Yep, looked cool. But she held the ladder, and she was the referee.
Yeah, I saw that.
Very much
Jericho was holding the other side, wasn't he?
Yeah, which things like that kind of draw me out of it. But I don't hate her as much as Rob potentially does. But yeah, she does things, little things that kind of wind me up. Yeah,
totally. A couple of quick things in the chat here, Mags. First of all, my comment about Tanner and Matt on Radio Tekkers. Matt responding, "I can hear you, mank lad." Well, yep, I didn't stutter. And
oh wow! and in this is some backstage politicking. This is the real Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart.
And Sharon here saying that sideline coaches, our daughter lives football, and this harks greatly to a game between Gloucester, who my daughter plays for, and I think it was Cheltenham potentially, and there was a fella running the line who flagged somebody offside. It was a Cheltenham parent running the line, flagged somebody offside. The referee said no because these people weren't interfering with play. A goal was scored, the goal stood. Apologies, Sharon, if I'm telling this wrong. Sharon, having watched so much football with me and also been involved with the running of a couple of football clubs and so on, fully understands the offside rule and basically points out they weren't interfering with play. The flag doesn't apply to them. The girl who scored was onside, and this person got quite agitated and started acting like a bit of a dick. And to be honest, you're picking the wrong person to act a dick towards. My wife will kick your ass. So, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But there we go. At Rain Counter on Twitter. Fantastic, first of all, to hear the return of Badlands this week, Magsy. Over the sodding moon to have that show back.
All my work. Nobody helped at all. No, it was it's been in talks for a while. Ray Cash, who's joined the team as a permanent third member, he basically kind of convinced Tolly to get back into content creating. We've always been in like a group thread, so even when Tolly took his hiatus from wrestling Twitter, we've always like kept in contact and chatted away. And with a few changes to the show, with kind of limiting the guests that come on, and with the topics that we talk about, Paul feels a little bit more confident and less disillusioned with wrestling. So it was good to have him back. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, brilliant. It's great. I listened to the first episode. I really enjoyed it. It made me laugh straight off the bat with Ray wrecking your intro at the very beginning of the show. I was just laughing from the first. I love the fact that the show is back. I mean, thank you. Not gonna lie, didn't reach out to me, mate. Didn't let me know what was going on. I'm upset. I feel out the loop.
I mean, the first podcast wife came back. Sorry, I had to. You're essentially the side chick.
I'm the bit on the side. Yeah, I'm starting a new podcast.
Well, yeah, you started one with Benny.
I'm starting another one. It's called Watch This Why, and it's me speaking to content creators about how they got into wrestling. So that's what I'm going to do. It's not gimmick infringement. Why we watched that you did was you talking to content creators about how they became fans. I'm talking about, I didn't know what I was going to end that sentence with when I started it, and I kind of got stuck. I'll leave that alone.
Dan Griffin's putting the SAR inside chick.
Yes, that's it.
The No Mags Club. I mean, I am surprised nobody's come up with a podcast called that where I'm specifically not allowed to be on the show.
But you'd still sneak on somehow.
I'd put on my top hat and my glasses, and Lord Magsington would turn up.
Magsington. Anyway, Tolly said, we get sidetracked a lot, mate. People not sat at the table when he serves dinner. Mm-hmm. I guess I can appreciate that. It's not something that affects me, really, to be fair, because our house is so small. We haven't got a table. Well, we used to, but we got rid of it to make more room.
He's very middle class, I think. That's him coming from Hertfordshire.
Hertfordshire.
In the middle of the English countryside. Yeah, he's quite middle class, is Mr. Tolly.
Wrestling journalists, I think we can all get on board with that one, can't we? Mr. Brad Shepherd, I'm looking at you absolute fucking cock.
Yeah, he posted a picture this week of essentially a group of wrestling journalists, and I don't really want to use the word, but influencers all gathered together for Full Gear, and someone took a picture of them all together. It was cool, not my cup of tea, but Brad had to comment on it and really kind of turn the screw in, saying that, oh yeah, these people basically live in their own fantasy world. Yeah, he's a dick. I mean, I don't agree with a lot of what the content creators who were in the photo say a lot of the time, but that's subjectivity of wrestling. But to go out of his way to shit on them all, yeah, he's just a dickhead.
Right, it gets worse than that. I'll get into it properly on another episode, because I can see it being something that we're going to end up discussing for a pimple dick in the future, I think. But he has a new podcast. I listened to it.
Well, that was your first mistake.
Well, I listened to it purely because of some of the comments. I listened to see, well, why are people slating him so much? Oh my God. Literally within 25 minutes, there was fat shaming, homophobia. I think there was a bit of racism in there. Feminism is a cancer, is a term I can remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, but this is a guy who did an article on a website, basically rating the sexiness of women wrestlers.
Oh, this is a segment on the show. This is a segment on his new show called I think it's Butt of the Week, and he talks about I mean, don't get me wrong. I appreciate the female form. That's the way I swing. Each to their own. I understand, there are people who might appreciate the male form, but probably not mine. But, whatever makes you happy. And I don't mind pointing out an attractive lass and saying to my wife, bloody hell, look at her, or whatever. But to go about it in that way, and then effectively in the same breath, in the same show, fat shaming somebody else. It was Dewdrop from WWE that they sort of went on about, and it's just absolutely disgusting, disgusting. But we'll get into it another time, because this show is so full and packed already, Mags. I don't want to get sidetracked with.
We've still got so many kind of grapes to go through.
We'll move on quickly. Wrestling journalists, I said, shouldn't be surprised to an industry built on spoiling surprises. I can understand where he's coming from there. Pop-up ads that take up to 3/4 of the screen when you are reading a reputable newspaper's website, moving down the screen with you so you can never read the whole story.
Yeah.
That's something that irritates you as well, Magsy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I really dislike the kind of like transparent ones that'll pop up. And they'll cover the whole screen, and the only way to get rid of them is a tiny little X, which you can very rarely find, and that annoys. The other one that I get a lot of is I have ad block running on my machine, so you don't get like adverts during YouTube videos and stuff like that. But when you go to certain websites, they'll say, "Oh, we see you've got ad block running," and they'll put a massive like logo upon them, and you can't read the article until you basically allow that website to show adverts, which just really fucking annoys me. But yeah, that's absolutely annoying.
Porn sites are the worst, mate.
I mean, I can neither confirm nor deny.
And they put a fake X on. So when you click on the fake X, thinking you're closing that, it takes you off to all these different adverts, and you end up in the great big pornado. And it's just like adverts everywhere, mate. It's shocking,
Sharon, take SARS phone off him.
Or so I've been told. I'm not saying
Allegedly.
Allegedly. I'm passing on a message from a friend. On Facebook, we had Chuck Winchester, all the way from the States, saying, when people call him, just text. And my little sister Hazel was in those comments on Facebook as well. I say in those comments. It was literally just Chuck and Hazel. Facebook is not massively active. And she agreed, just ring. Just text, don't ring.
I can't stand idle chit chat on the phone. It annoys me. It really does. Yeah.
See, I will text and message and so on.
Text is fine. Absolutely fine.
But if I need somebody, like for example, my sister's the one. We'll use my sister as an example because she's the main culprit in my family, I think. She won't answer the phone. Or she hates it when people ring her. And she'll say, why have you rang me? Just text me. So majority of the time, I will text her. But if I need an answer on something like really quickly, like I think there was a gig I was looking at going to and wanted to know if my sister wanted to come, the tickets were on sale. I had the website open. I needed an answer. So I'll ring her. It'll ring and ring and ring, cut off, go to voicemail, and then I'll get a text straight away saying,
what do you want?
What's up? And it's like, answer your phone because I'll go, oh, do you want to go to this show? And then she'll message back, how much is it? And I'll message that. And then it'll be, when is it? What time is it? How are we getting? So just answer the freaking phone. It'll be done in 30 seconds.
Yeah,
so
and
I'm the other way around.
That would be fun if the conversation was done in 30 seconds. But I dislike those conversations where someone will ring and you'll answer it and they'll get to the point what they were ringing for. And then it'll be, oh, by the way, what have you been up to? What you doing this week? And I'm like, I don't really want to tell you. I don't give a shit. I've answered your question. Now, kindly fuck off.
Oh, I know what you mean. Other family members as well who don't text. That drives me mad. I send messages to my mum, my dad, my sister, and so like I might send a picture of the cat or a picture of the kids or whatever, and I'll send it to all of them. And my dad will always open it, look at it, and just never respond.
Leave you on read. That's the most annoying, especially if you have like delivery reports. I don't know if you have that on your phone, but you can see when somebody's read the message and then they don't reply, and you think, you absolute tosser. You've clearly read it.
Yeah.
Just fucking reply.
Paul Tolley continues as well. Spoken word poetry adverts.
Mm-hmm.
Every other advert is spoken word or poetry at the moment. Nationwide in particular infuriate me. I hate Ponzi adverts like for aftershave or perfume, and it's like, you know, some sort of artsy dance and this woman sort of doing this majestic spinning and all, and the colors all around them, and she'll sit on a sofa and lie down, and it'll be, you know, use this so you don't smell of arse or something. I don't know. It's just like, it's just so pretentious. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they're always kind of like a catwalk model looking, or celebrities who are just look like they have been painted by Da Vinci, just amazing looking people, not normal scumbags like us who just don't want to stink.
Yeah.
That
would be the perfect advert, mate, for a proper good aftershave. Yeah. It'd be a bloke at work sweating his moves off, absolutely honking, you know, soaked in sweat, dirt, and, you know, maybe me cleaning the toilets, just absolutely drenched,
just spraying Paco Rabanne into the bowl,
just absolutely reeking, covered in dust and crap and dirt and old food because I clean the canteen and all this sort of stuff. And then I check my phone and it says pub, and then I'm running to the pub, sweating even more, so I'm really smelly. And just before I go in the pub, spray myself with that deodorant or that perfume or that aftershave, walk in, and everyone's just like, oh,
and all the sweat's gone. You've changed your clothes.
Oh.
You've had a shave.
Yeah,
that'd be the perfect.
That's perfect, mate. Yeah, totally. We got a bit going on in the chat, Magsy, haven't we? What's happening here?
Yeah. So Dan is really entertained by your tornado. Says you can't make him laugh like that when his ribs are killing him.
He's poorly, isn't he?
Well, when's he not? When's he not poorly? I think he's a bit of a hypochondriac on the sly. Sharon, after my rant about people wanting to hardly chit chat on the phone, says she will never ring me. Good. I'm glad you got the message. Dan agreeing with you that melodramatic advertising wanker is the worst. M&S have a lot to answer for. Now, M&S adverts, yeah, the kind of the talking over the adverts are horrible, but the food in the adverts always like makes me go, oh, I could eat some of that M&S food.
Yeah, but the thing is though, it just shows me how lazy I am then, because it shows these wonderful bits of grub, and it means for me to get that I got to go to M&S, and I'm just like, oh, you know what? I got some fucking waffles in the freezer. Or something, do you know what I mean?
Or you pick up your phone and you go, did somebody say just eat?
Oh
man. Sharon saying her brother did it to her once, said that she didn't get his message, thinking I had an Android. Imagine the look on his face when he saw it on an iPhone, and I could see that he had read it. Yeah. Well, what an arsehole of a brother. So, and Dan got another week off, so naturally I picked up the cold that my nieces have just had. A likely story, sir. A likely story.
Yeah, a cold. Okay, mate. That's ale flu, that is. Five Nerds Go, at Five Nerds Go, who I bonded with over Twitter.
Yeah, yesterday. Trying to cause trouble, claiming that I am legless. Well, I mean, in the sense of having no legs, not in the sense of being paralytically drunk. And also that being legless entitles you to untold podcasting riches, which I've never quite got. I wish it did.
I don't really know how we ended up where we ended up, but it basically went from talking about this to you being half Coco Beware, half Davros from Doctor Who, and doing that as a career, and a few pictures were exchanged, which you'll be able to find on the Chain Wrestling Twitter account if anyone wants to go and view them. But yeah, it's I don't know how that happened, but I was laughing. It was funny.
It was.
Five Nerds Go say wrestling fans completely on board with that one.
Yeah, I am a wrestling fan, and I'm annoying as fuck.
Yes.
I agree.
People who don't have their Oyster cards ready at the barrier.
That's a London is shit kind of thing, though, isn't it? We don't. Oyster cards aren't popular around these parts.
Around these parts, we don't get trains around here.
Yeah, it's horse, cart, and trams.
We go by donkey or goat. I go by goat. People who go fetch more shopping after coming to the till. That's me. I do that every single time I go to our local shop. Every single time.
That is sometimes me and the missus. If say we've got our trolley full of food, and then I'll spot some out of the corner of my eye, and she'll be in the queue, getting ready to unload onto the conveyor belt, and I'll see somewhere, and I'll just grab that. Oh, and I'll grab that, and I'll grab that, and I'll grab that, and I'll come back with about 4 or 5 more things. So yeah, I would annoy Matt.
I never pick up a basket, so I end up just grabbing like cat food, dog food, beer,
and just walking around carrying it in your arms.
Carrying it, thinking I only want a couple of bits. But then the more I'm in the shop, the more I think I need this, I need that. Walk up to the counter. It's only a little corner shop. I think I got to put all this down because I still need to go and grab
more stuff,
a bit of chocolate for the missus or something. So yeah, I do that.
At the over end of the store.
Put it all down on the counter and just walk back off. Yeah. I am a piece of shit. Just
then
like
what
that.
You should do one day is do all that and then just walk out of the shop. just leave it all there and then piss off.
yeah, I could do actually. Five Nerds Go continue. People who take stuff off shelves and then put it somewhere stupid when they decided they don't want it. Yeah, that's fair enough. Unless
I have done that on occasion. I have to admit I've picked something up and then gone that a couple of hours later and then seen something else that maybe I could exchange it for, or something on a deal, for instance, and I've took the original out and put it on a shelf that it doesn't belong on. Yeah, I can see that being annoying if you were a staff member. You suddenly find a tin of Branston beans
in the freezer.
I've never gone to that extreme. I have been in a Tesco where somebody has put like a loaf of bread in the freezer, which is just ridiculous. But like tin of beans on the cereal aisle, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, I go through these things by a screenshot. I literally just screenshot people's tweets, so I've got them in a list. The very next screenshot I'm going to put up to the phone if people can see this. don't know if I can. Where are we? There we go. It's Magsy as Coco Beware and Davros.
I mean,
Frankie's holding the mint era.
There's no me actually in that photo.
Yes, there is. That's you. That's what you do. You dress up as Davros and Coco Beware.
So
you can tell it's you. It's the Burnley flag coming out the bottom of the Daleklet,
which also has parts of the pitch still attached to it.
I thought I did really well making that.
You did.
It didn't take me ages. I didn't lose my temper. That's all I promise. Steve-O at Total Steve-O on Twitter, very good friend of the show.
Oh, he went wild.
He has a few. He's
an angry chappy. Is our Steve-O,
which is funny because hilarious. I never get that from him.
Hilarious, but he's a lot of things rattling, I think.
Yeah. People that spend what seems like an eternity choosing what hummus to buy. That's very specific, hummus, isn't it?
I mean,
so if people take their time choosing something else, is that okay? It's just to be there in the way of the hummus.
Because he wants the hummus, I assume.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. People that spend what seems like an eternity choosing bananas.
So it's just choosing anything. I think it must be.
It's opening up now, Mags.
Mm-hmm.
People in gyms that spend more time staring at a phone than actually exercising. I wouldn't know about that. The last time I went into a gym was just to see if the bar was open.
This gym used to be a pub.
Yeah, exactly. People that can't drive the speed limit. And what he means is, if you want to drive faster than 20 miles an hour, crack on, but don't drive slower. Okay, I can appreciate that.
That is annoying. But the speed limit is not. It's not mandatory. It's not a target that you have to hit. It's just the maximum speed that you're allowed to go. So
just going down the motorway, get to 70, and you can start celebrating.
Yeah, I've made it.
Done it. Party poppers out the window and all sorts. People in Range Rovers, 4x4s, essentially tanks, emergency braking to go over speed bumps.
Just people in 4x4s, or not specifically 4x4s, but people in Range Rovers in towns annoy the piss out of me, because there is no need for such a honking great car when you don't have a farm or live in the countryside. It's ridiculous. We have them a lot in the area of Burnley that I'm in, where people have these huge 4x4s just to go to the local shop or to go into town, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, totally. I mean, obviously you've got one because your driveway is so long; it's effectively going through the countryside to get to the population, isn't it, Max?
But ours is also electric, and it helps on us reduce our carbon footprint.
The Lord of Padiham.
I don't live in Padiham, thank God.
Well, no, you don't, but your driveway starts there. Andy, Bang Bang Podcast in the chat there saying he used to manage a fruit and veg shop and told people off for touching the bananas all the time. Is that a euphemism? Is that? And
Millwall Chris will be able to confirm this. He's also upset that we have an issue with Oyster cards. I don't particularly have an issue with them. We have no use for them. We don't have that service in Burnley. But
Goats don't take them.
Yeah, I'm sure he said something about working in a Morrison's maybe, and some of the stuff that happened with the bananas in that Morrison's was pretty horrific.
I remember that. That was for a non-wrestling topic here a while back, wasn't it? Yeah, not a cool look.
I wonder if Andy also had the same issue with those said bananas.
Potentially. Bloody hell, Steve-O continues. Living in London, there's many things. Virtually everyone's staring at the phone no matter where they are. People on buses or tubes desperate to get off before being anywhere near the next stop. People that get annoyed not putting the divider on a checkout conveyor belt. Okay.
People who get annoyed at other people not putting that divider. Is that a thing? So. I mean, I put the divider there as a matter of course. You just I've finished. This is the space I need. Crack on with the next person. But do people not Do people have an issue with that?
I always put the divider name because I don't want somebody swiping like my jalapeno peppers or something. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, the divider doesn't create a force field. They could simply just reach over the divider.
Well, do you know what? I've never even thought that. I'm not saying that I think it is.
I could really have that. I want his jalapenos. Oh shit! He's put the divider there. There's no way around getting them peppers now.
Well, what I mean is, you put some stuff on its side and it rolls, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like bottled
like
drinks
bottles.
and so on. Yeah.
So
that could roll into somebody else's shopping.
It could, I suppose. That's what the divider's for.
And you might not notice until you get home and you're like, well, where's my bottle of whatever? And the bloke behind you just bought it and took it home instead. How annoying would that be?
It'd be more annoying if you'd paid for it and then he took it home.
Yeah, that is worse, actually. Yeah,
and I don't think you'd have that issue because I'm sure there's not two people in the vicinity who both like drinking the horrific cheap cream soda.
Well, potentially. Just me. Steve-O continues again. He thought of a wrestling-themed annoyance when a bunch of wrestlers waiting outside the ring for someone to jump on them. Yeah, I completely despise that as well.
Yes. And this is one of the bigger bugbears I have with AEW because it happens so much in that show. I get that you have to protect each other in the ring, but surely there's a better way to come up with than everybody just standing around that looking at the watchers and waiting. There must be a better way of coming up with it. So yeah, that's a very annoying one. I think this one needs mentioning by Andy in the chat. I had someone with a mobile up their bottom last week and someone who'd swallowed some drawing pins. I assume one of them is Nick Gage.
Which one?
The mobile phone. The mobile phone. Yeah.
Andy from Bang Bang Podcast mentioned the devil, I guess, sent us a DM, Magsy, saying he hates peas. He shoved a load up his nose as a kid. He shoved a load up his nose as a kid and had to go to hospital to have smelling salts stuck under his nose and to get him to sneeze them out. That's glorious.
I'd be interested in which kind of peas, like petit pois or like the big marrow fat ones.
Frozen ones or
frozen pea.
Well, that's where my mind went. My mind went to frozen for some reason.
They may well have been. I bet they come out cooked once it's finished. Nose pea, delicious.
Nice. Don't, because I'll start retching. You know, I'm funny about all snot and that sort of stuff. Andy continues. I also hate adverts during podcasts, pub singers, apart from Barry from EastEnders, and John Cena's Twitter account. And he says he's got him blocked. I can get on board with John Cena's Twitter account. Oh my goodness. That guy is just so pretentious and just
laugh affirming.
Yeah, and it's like, all right, mate. Yeah, wind it in a bit, yeah. You can't be that positive. Or don't get me wrong. Yeah, I'm a big believer of trying to be positive when you can and so on, but you can't be that positive and that, for want of a better term, that deep all the time. Wind your neck in, pal. Give your head a wobble, you know?
Yeah,
bloody hell.
I don't know how I feel about him having an issue with podcast adverts. That's up to him, I suppose. But being part of the chair shot, it keeps the lights on in the company. So unfortunately, it's a thing that we have to do. But yeah, you can always skip past. Or listen at 5 times the speed like me, so it just melds into the podcast.
You're a freak. You're a speed listening freak. Charlie, my youngest daughter, says chewing really loudly. Other people chewing really loudly.
Chewing with your mouth open. That annoys. That really annoys.
I hate like chewing gum and bubble gum and all that sort of stuff. And when the kids, it's banned in my house, but sometimes the kids will sneak it in. And oh God. I hate it.
I don't mind it. It serves a purpose. Helps freshen your breath and helps kind of like fight the plaque, I suppose. But yeah, when you're how does a mint help fight plaque?
Well, no, I'm just saying, you want to freshen your breath, just have a mint. You want to help fight plaque, brush your teeth.
That's fair.
Do you know what I mean?
But yeah, the incessant chomping, and the worst one is when someone's eating something like particularly chewy, like say caramel, and they're going,
right.
You fucking animal. Jesus Christ. I'd send them out of the room. I would send them right out of the room.
There's one particular thing that I eat that I can't remember what it is now. So Sharon, if you remember, there's one thing I eat downstairs in the front room that makes me crunch and eat like that.
We call that squanching in this house.
Squanching?
Yeah.
Squanching.
When you have that word. It's when you have something like a boiled sweet, and you instead of like sucking it until it goes smaller, you're crunching it. That's called squanching, and yeah, that's an annoying thing because everybody can hear you doing it, and it pisses me off.
There's something in particular that makes me. What would be the word squanch? It makes me squanch. Yeah. It makes me to squanch. Matt Willis on WhatsApp. I saw your message in the chat as well, Matt, saying you've continued this on elsewhere, so I will bring that up as well in a moment. Matt Willis says he has an irrational hatred for Penny Lancaster on Celebrity MasterChef.
Whoa, I don't mind Penny Lancaster. That's Rod Stewart's ex-missus, in it.
I don't know who this is.
Yeah, she seems all right. I'm not on board with that one, Matt. Take that one back, sir.
He says she kept bragging about having her own chef at home. Bitch, you don't see Chris bragging about having one at home, that being me.
I mean, are you a chef technically? You warm things up in a hospital and give out fraudulent hormonal advice.
Why? Okay. Also,
apparently they're still married, according to Matt. He also put that in capitals. He's angry that they are still married.
Yeah. Okay. Perhaps he thinks that Rod deserves better. I don't know.
She's punching above her weight.
Yeah. Or perhaps he hates her, but hates Rod Stewart even more and thinks that she's punched. She deserves better.
He did sing "Sailing."
Yeah, that's a tune. And what's that one? That's not
Hot Stuff. That's not what Summer. Is that not Donna Summer?
I'm thinking of something else. What am I thinking of? Because obviously Donna Summer and Donna Summer, the black lady, is so much like Rod Stewart, the white Scottish dude. What is the song I'm thinking of, Max?
I'm not well versed with the Rod Stewart back catalogue, but let's have a quick look.
Sharon, if you're in the chat, what's the song I'm thinking of? You'll know it.
Do you think I'm sexy?
That's it. That's the one. That's a tune.
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay. Well, glad we cleared that up. Also, in the same vein, Matt continues, Joe Swash, what is the point of that waste of blood and organs?
I find him quite funny. He's married to Stacey Solomon now, isn't he? I think.
Okay, I know who Joe Swash is, and he's on Gogglebox with her, isn't he, sometimes?
Yeah, he was in EastEnders for a little while, and he's kind of lived off that for the rest of his career.
Okay.
He won King. Was he not King of the Jungle in I'm a Celebrity one time?
That does sound. He has done other shows with I'm a Celebrity, and the winners tend to stay on and do other stuff, don't they? So
yeah.
Matt says he's not quirky, he's not funny. As Mags would say, he's stealing a living.
Well,
even quoting you to mock Joe, mate.
I mean, don't use my quotes against me, Matt. I don't mind a bit of Joe Swash. I don't think he's particularly funny, but he's one of those kind of cockney, cheeky chaps, isn't he?
How's it go?
That you'll never see me do that ever
again. Matt says, I also hate Iron Man matches in wrestling, guaranteed to be won by 1-4 right at the end. I mean, I've seen some that are not that way. There's quite a famous one that involved Ric Flair and Arn Anderson as a tag team that ended 2-0 as opposed to whatever it was. I was not sure that was the best out of 3-4s. So maybe you're right, Matt. Yeah, okay. I don't mind them, really.
No, there's some good ones. I think the Sasha Banks and Bailey one on NXT was a banger.
Yeah, we covered that for SJP, didn't we? That was really good. Yeah, that's true. Matt also says here, Kid Rock is another hate. He single-handedly is the biggest waste of energy to have performed at WrestleMania. Now, I don't know about that because there has been some dodgy-ass performances at WrestleMania.
I mean,
There's been some real awfulness.
The DX band were terrible. I don't know if that was at WrestleMania, though.
Yeah, that was WrestleMania 14. Played Shawn Michaels to the ring when he lost to Austin.
Yeah. They were awful.
Yeah. He died, didn't he?
The singer.
The lead guy from the DX band, he died like literally, I think, in the last few months.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
I say that, died in the last few months. I still think 1980 was only like 10 years ago. So he might have been dead for a long, long time. But, you know, it's...
I mean, it doesn't take away the fact that his performance as the singer was awful.
No, very true.
But yeah, I don't subscribe to Matt's hate of Kid Rock. Yeah, and Dan's put in the chat, that's a big claim when Pitbull exists. And also Flowrider. He was at WrestleMania before, and he's terrible.
Matt actually continues, and I can understand why he has this viewpoint now with the reason he's given here. They gave Kid Rock, they gave him time to do a mini set instead of letting the women have intros for the Battle Royal. And then he didn't allow them to show it on repeat. He can literally go fuck himself.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And I understand the point there. But if you were talking about Kid Rock's musical skill, then yeah, I don't subscribe to that. But yeah, if he had an issue with and caused trouble for the women's wrestlers, yeah, fair play. What a wanker.
Yeah, totally.
Pimple dick
indeed. That sort of concludes stuff off Twitter, Facebook, DMs, WhatsApp.
And it only took 90 minutes.
Why? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm so happy that people interact with the show. It is always a joy. But why? That's longer than some of our episodes.
And I dare say there was many more pet peeves that people had. That could be something that gets revisited.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. What about yourself, Magsy? You got any that we haven't covered yet? I suppose we covered quite a few as we were going along, didn't we?
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of them. Some of them I don't agree with. I'll get the obvious meme out of the way. Yeah, I can't stand bubbly chocolate. We all know that. And it's it's a ridiculous thing to dislike. But for me, probably the main thing is when people chew on their kind of wrists on jumpers or on the collar of T-shirts. That annoys the living piss out of me. When you do the washing up and then somebody...
When I do the washing up?
No, not you particularly, but you as in a person does the washing up. And then you'll go away and then come back and then all of a sudden there's a full sink of washing up in your thing.
My God. When I've done the washing up and I say to the kids, bring your washing up downstairs, I'm washing up now. And then one of them will come down with a random plate 20 minutes later. I want it, honestly. I'd do time for that. I swear to God. Yeah,
that annoys. When people leave shoes about, that annoys. When probably the biggest kind of ridiculous grind that I have is with people's coats. Like I mentioned, we have a vestibule where you can hang coats up, so people have to pass through. Vestibule. Yeah. But people have to pass through that area to come into the house.
Yeah,
but yet they'll come in and they'll hang the coat up on the balustrade going up the stairs. And you think you went past where the coats belong. Why didn't you just leave the coat there? Instead, you came further into the building and hung it over the pole at the end of the stairs.
Yeah,
and I'm forever going back and hanging people's coats up. Eventually, I'm going to take a Stanley knife to them and just cut them up. But
that's some kind of real sociopath behavior, that is. You know?
I even once had I want to call it a lost property box, where because we have people in our house have a tendency to, I finish with an item, I'll leave it where I finish with it. I won't put it back where it belongs, or I won't return it. I'll just leave it. So I'd go around and that's there, and I'd put it in the box. And if it wasn't claimed, like in a few days, I'm gonna cob it in the bin. For a few days, then everything was picked up, and then the box went away, and then all of a sudden it happened again, and people leave the stuff around. That kind of stuff annoys me. It's pathetic, really. But yeah, it does absolutely annoy me.
Oh, a couple of things that get me that haven't been mentioned, mate. People who smell, that drives me mad. People who have BO, or I don't know if I'm overly sensitive to it.
Bad breath is the worst one for me.
Oh my God, that drives me mad. It's like, just have a fucking wash, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Plugs being left on at night, that drives me batty. When the kids are
left on.
Yeah, plugs being left on. So like, I'll go in the kids' rooms before I go to bed. Last thing I do is I lock up downstairs and I'll go in and check all the kids before I go to bed, even though they're much older now. So like, it's just force of habit. And there'll be little standby lights all dotted around the room.
Okay.
Where stuff's been left on standby, and it's like, just turn your plug off. Just turn your plug off.
I mean,
that drives me insane, and I get it from my dad, because my dad used to go around turning the plugs off at night as well.
That's annoying that you're annoyed by that.
Why?
I mean, it doesn't affect me. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in my house, I suppose. But yeah, I've never got the. It's kind of really an old school mentality of making sure you turn all the plugs off.
Oh, 100%.
When really it's there's so many safety protocols built into plug fittings nowadays that it's not even.
But the thing is, it's not just say the telly that's on standby. It can be like there's an extension lead, and I don't know what's in that extension lead. Okay, so they could have a phone charger, a gaming charger, or loads of stuff running off this extension lead. But because I see the telly is on standby, I know that those plugs are still on, and that drives me batty. And lastly, it's when I annoy myself with this. Clutter, mess, and so on, as we said about Magsy, drives me nuts. Sharon there in the chat saying I have a real issue with electricals. Yeah, I really do. I do turn the kettle off when I go to bed. Yeah, I turn the kettle off at the plug. Yeah, I can't leave it on. The only thing I leave on is the fridge and the freezer.
That feels like you're giving yourself more work by having to turn them back on.
Well, this is what I was going to say. The thing that drives me mad as well is my own. I suppose you call it OCD, but I don't really know what And it's a case of I got my routine at bedtime, and I'll go around locking the doors, checking the windows. Even though it's winter now, I know the windows have not been opened. I will still check the windows, and then I'll check the freezer, the bottom freezer, and the fridge are shut by pushing them all. And then I'll go up to bed, check the kids' rooms, and go to bed. Now, if I get into bed, I can be led there for half an hour, knowing full well I have touched the fridge, the freezer, and the other freezer to make sure that the air seal is shut.
The magnet.
Yeah. To make sure I know I've done it, but if it enters my mind, oh, did I do that one freezer? I've got to get up, go downstairs, and do the whole thing again. Otherwise, I can't function. I can't sleep. It drives. I lie in bed getting angrier and angrier and angrier.
That's way worse than my hatred of arrows.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Well, I want the fridge shut properly to keep my arrows cold.
But you should.
Yeah, but the same as when we go out. I'll check the front door. I'll get in the car, and then it does sound stereotypically OCD. Yeah, cheers, Dan. You're probably right. We'll lock the front door. I'll get in the car. We'll be halfway down the road, and I'll say to the missus, "Do I lock the front door?" And she'll just be like, "We're not going back," and it'll be on my mind the whole time we're out.
You may need therapy.
Yeah, I do sound a bit mental, don't I? Yeah. Should we talk a bit of wrestling, mate?
I don't know if I dare now, but let's do it.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Because this is a wrestling podcast.
100 minutes in.
My goodness. I hope everyone's buckling up, sitting down, relaxing, because we've still got more to cover. And this is better than watching England score double digits against a load of farmers, isn't it, eh?
And this is going to be a nice light topic that's definitely not going to go very deep or political. Yeah,
no.
This
I know
one should
there
be
won't
fun.
be arguments or, anything like that. Basically, Montreal, the Screwjob in 1997.
Which was this week 24 years ago.
That's right. So it ties in quite nicely there. The what happened, I think every wrestling fan is aware of. If you don't know, then I suggest you go and check out, just literally type it into Google, because you'll get a million hits, responses, whatever. But there's so much. Yeah, exactly. FIFA Connor 16 in the chat. Nothing controversial there. Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from. There's so much that went on in the build-up to this match. So much that went on after the match. Why it happened, who knew, who was in the right is always a big one for me.
Yeah.
But something that gets missed quite often as well, Maxie, is the match itself, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we said just as much last week when we was harping up the pick. There's so much kind of story and lore and kind of who done it about this whole incident, that the match is usually overshadowed.
Yes. So I mean, we will get into the match itself. I mean, to be honest, though, watching it back, there's not masses to cover, but it is still quite good. I mean, it gets overlooked unfairly, I think.
I mean, it's in terms of actual wrestling, there's maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But the whole section that it's got is about half an hour on the pay-per-view. But we could talk for hours and hours about the build up to it, what happened, who did what, and then also what happened after as well. So there's certainly a lot to cover.
And Sharon in the chat there saying, "Don't you dare badmouth my dad," because as anyone who listens to the show will know, Sharon was led to believe that Bret Hart was her father when she was very, very little by her mum. I'm afraid, Shar, I might say a few things that could upset you here, but we'll get to that in a moment. Magsy, where do you want to start, mate? Because there's so much, isn't there?
Well, I mean, there is, like I said, there's so much lore, and as I said at the beginning of the show, this was really one of the first times I've really got a hell of a lot of notes. I normally do bullet points just to kind of give reminders, but there's so much to tell about the build up to this that I think we need to go right back to the beginning. For me, this kind of starts in 1992. When Bret Hart actually first wins the WF title. That kind of inspires Shawn Michaels to kind of scratch and claw his way to the top of the card. He wanted to be the guy in wrestling, and he wasn't afraid to step over or kind of put down anybody on his way there. I mean, we got the whole kind of overshadowing of Diesel at WrestleMania 11. Then he went on and won the belt himself in WrestleMania 12. But I think for the reason that this started to brew into a rivalry and a hatred was the way Shawn Michaels acted when he was a champion was totally kind of like in stark contrast to how Bret was. Bret was the kind of like the wholesome, you should be somebody that the company can be proud of. Shawn Michaels was the epitome of a douchebag champion, politicking his way to the top. So then when we get to about 1996, when Bret had his hiatus because of losing to Shawn, he came back and he made a point of ripping into Shawn's attitude, ripping into the fact he did Playgirl, the way that he acted, and that kind of like sparked off what would happen over the next year or so.
Yeah. You also had the rumblings in the background, didn't you, of Bret's contract, which is obviously the big issue coming up with the whole Montreal date and so on. Bret was initially signed famously to a 20-year deal by Vince McMahon. And this was to wrestle for X amount of years at a high pay rate, which would then deteriorate down.
Yeah, so the contract was 3 years as a wrestler at 1.5 mil. Then it went down to, I think, 900,000 for 7 years as like an ambassador, and then 10 years as kind of like on the sidelines for $250,000 a year.
Yeah, exactly. So he had this huge long-term contract that was presented to him that he'd signed. The issue, though, going forward was they couldn't afford it. Amazingly, looking at the money that they make now, they couldn't honor this contract, so they had to renegotiate with Brett. Brett was allowed to go and speak with WCW to see if there's any offer on the table there, which there naturally was. WCW have been interested in him for many, many years. And that's where we kind of get to a problem, isn't it, Mags?
Yeah, I think you're kind of glossing over some of the major issues here. So Vince signed him to this contract, and Dan says in the chat he doesn't believe that Vince could necessarily afford it at the time. And I think Vince was hoping for an upturn, that bringing Brett back would bring an upturn in revenue. When that didn't come, leading into Survivor Series, I think around the 1st of November, he essentially said to Brett, I can't afford this contract. Now, we have a couple of options. One is to defer the payment and hope that we get on the right side of the finances, and I can pay.
Yeah, he wanted to sort of the bulk of the early money he was going to put back to the end of the contract, wasn't he? Yeah. He was hoping, well, that's all effectively an IOU, I guess.
So Brett, who was already disillusioned with the company because of what had happened in the build-up to Survivor Series, he totally reneged that, said, no, absolutely not. So that's when Vince said, then I've got no option to allow you to seek a contract elsewhere. In fact, offering to help kind of negotiate that deal with WCW.
Yeah.
But there was an interesting clause that's very rarely talked about in this contract, that when it got to the final 30 days of the contract, of his wrestling contract, Brett had a clause that gave him reasonable creative control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when Brett left, when Brett signified his intention to leave to WCW after Survivor Series, that activated that clause. So he had a reasonable creative control over his character work, just so essentially the company couldn't bury him in the last month or so, and he could leave on his own terms.
Yeah, why would he think that would happen? Why would he think that he'd get buried? I mean, that's not something that the WWE would do, is it? Also, before this time, you get, I suppose, the background of the rivalry, the real life backstage rivalry between Brett and Shawn, where you had issues with, for example, the plans over WrestleMania, from WrestleMania 12 to 13. The rematch of WrestleMania 12's main event between the two was supposed to take place at 13. That was initial plans. Shawn did the infamous "I've lost my smile" speech, vacated the title when they were trying to get him to drop it to Vince. Drop it to Vince. That's nonsense. Drop it to Sid that week because of a knee injury. He said, I'm not doing that. So again, like you said, Magsy, politicking his way to a scenario where he was going to vacate the belt. And famously, no one knew Shawn was going to stand in the ring and basically say, my mum's tells me I've lost my smile. He was supposed to vacate the title with a knee injury. And then we go to the final 4 pay-per-view for the vacant championship. What Michaels did really sort of scuppered things going forward, because everyone's then not thinking, oh, Shawn's out of an injury. They're thinking, is it some kind of depression situation or whatever? And that's another, I suppose, string to the rivalry between them. You also get to the incident where Brett is in the wheelchair. If you remember, Mags, at the end of an episode of Raw, building up to their feud, their matches, and so on going forward. Brett's in a wheelchair. Shawn is supposed to stand there, take a certain level of abuse from Brett from this promo. Brett is supposed to say a certain line or a certain cue, to which Shawn Michaels would super kick Brett out of the chair, and that's where the show would go off the air. So Shawn would almost Brett would get his comeuppance for running his mouth, so to speak. Brett, despite cameramen, referees, and everybody else around telling him we're running out of time, hit the cue, simply ignored them. Apparently, according to the likes of Bruce Pritchard and Jim Ross, there's no way he didn't see these cues. He chose not to give the cue to Shawn for the super kick. Eventually, when Shawn got the super kick in, they were off air. Shawn was livid because it ended the show with him standing there just getting dog's abuse off Brett and making him look a chump. So you had all these little things going on, didn't you? That sort of the hatred was there anyway, but it was building and building and building towards this November date, Mags, wasn't it?
Yeah, and to go back to the dropping of the title, Brett was already suspicious that Shawn wasn't injured, that he was only dropping the title, so he didn't have to lose.
Yes.
There was a conversation.
He had a track record of that already, didn't he? That was in his past already.
Yeah, I think there's been a write-up by I think Adam Pacitti at Cultolic who said that Shawn Michaels relinquished the title more times than he actually lost it to put somebody over. But Brett was suspicious that the injury was fake, and then it kind of like was rubber stamped to him when he faced Austin at WrestleMania, and then he saw Shawn Michaels backstage getting ready to do commentary for the main event. And he said he saw him dancing around in the ring, doing his trademark pause. And he said if he had a knee injury, there's no way he'd be able to pull stuff off like that. And then we get into the part where it starts to get really personal. Stuff like there was promos that mentioned Stu Hart being dead. And then obviously the infamous Sunny Days promo where Shawn Michaels kind of alluded to Bret Hart having an affair. This apparently led to a real shoot fight between the two.
Unsafe working environment, Shawn cited, didn't he?
Well, that's because a huge chunk of his hair was pulled out by Bret. Shawn Michaels got hold of the hair, threw it at Vince McMahon, said, I quit. It's an unsafe working environment. And this is kind of like the start of a roller coaster where McMahon is always siding with Shawn. It's always Bret who has to be the person who backs down, and it's Shawn who Vince clearly sees has the future of the company. Vince sees Shawn as the guy who will lead into this new generation, and maybe that Bret his contract was too expensive. He was stuck in the past. He believed in the kind of cartoon world of wrestling, whereas Shawn was more reality-based. The fans were clearly more chanting for him. So Vince picked his side, and he was notorious for doing that, playing wrestlers off each other and picking favourites. That's essentially builds up to King of the Ring, which was meant to be a match between the two. That got cancelled. Shawn Michaels ended up, I think, facing Austin, that King of the Ring. And then there's an issue that Bret had with Shawn turning heel. Now, if you remember, in early 1997, Bret had turned heel for the first time in over a decade, since he was in the tag team.
Yeah, and he felt that Shawn was going to almost steal his heat, didn't he, as the number one heel? And where would it leave Bret to go?
I think there's no ifs, ands, or buts about whether it stole the heel. Shawn Michaels turned heel at SummerSlam. He went on to feud with The Undertaker. Bret Hart ended up feuding with The Patriot. So it
good old Del Wilkes,
it pushed him all the way back down the card.
As champion, mind as well. I think this is an important thing to remember as well. For part of that run, Bret was still champion. And you had the Hell in a Cell match, of course, main evented Bad Blood. And I understand why that would be. But Bret's matches, often title matches, were lower than Shawn and Undertaker. Was it Unforgiven, maybe In Your House Unforgiven, where Shawn and Taker, we covered it for this show, I believe, Maxie, a while ago. It was one of your options that won the poll. I know it doesn't narrow it down because you have so many. But I believe that Shawn and Taker headlined the pay-per-view, whereas Bret was lower down the card defending the championship. So you can understand from one aspect why, almost CM Punk-esque, why Bret was frustrated with placement on the card. But at the same time, again, I'm going to constantly try and play devil's advocate here and put a different spin on everything that is said, whether I believe it or not. At the same time, we know Bret's going. Why would you have him in your main events?
Yeah, I mean, but this was happening way before Bret had signified that he was leaving, way before Vince had said, we can't afford you. I mean, there's an incident that happens at One Night Only, and that was in September. And this was not only just starting to attack Bret, this was now starting to affect Bret and his family. Essentially, Shawn Michaels was meant to be in a European title match against the British Bulldog. meant to put the Bulldog over because it was in England, and the Bulldog's sister was suffering from cancer at the time, and he wanted to kind of dedicate that win to his sister. Shawn Michaels essentially went to Vince and said it'd be a better story if I won the title and then Bulldog won it back later down the line. That rematch never happened, and it was just one more kind of like little way that Shawn Michaels could have a dig at the Hart Foundation, I suppose.
Yeah, totally. But again, this is something else. Again, me trying to play devil's advocate, I suppose. The politicking of Shawn Michaels here. People will go, oh, what a scumbag. He's politicking his way to the top. He's screwing other wrestlers and so on. This isn't something new. This is something that's been, this has been the wrestling business.
It still is the wrestling business.
Of course it is. Cena has been accused of it. Triple H famously during his run in the 2000s was famous. The Booker T incident, the way Scott Steiner was dealt with at the time, and so on. Hogan was one of the biggest politicers of all time. Steve Austin was an absolute git for it, but people forget about that because everyone loves Steve Austin. But he was terrible for it. He used to really protect his spot because there was a lot of competition back then. You can go way back to Buddy Rogers and so on, not wanting to lose certain matches in a certain place at certain times. This isn't new behavior, but I think sometimes it's easy to hate on Shawn for this behavior because it is being a dickhead, and the person being affected is someone that we all grew up loving in Bret.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're getting closer to the day now. I suppose with the timeline is flowing and heading into Montreal. Then we hear rumors of Shawn Michaels talking to Vince saying, I don't know if Bret is going to do the job. I don't know if he's going to do what's best for business, which is kind of ironic coming from him when he essentially had a conversation with Bret where Bret said, look, I don't like you, you don't like me, but for the sake of the company, I will always be willing to do what's best for business. If that means dropping the title to you, that means dropping the title to you. And in front of a packed locker room, Shawn Michaels said, just so you know, I would not be willing to do the same. So
and that's a dickhead move, isn't it?
Yeah, and this really kind of affected Bret. Because he believed in the sanctity of the wrestling business. So he refused to drop the title to Shawn Michaels. And as part of that kind of a creative control clause that he had, he was legally well within his right to do so. He even offered multiple different scenarios where they would get the title off him. I think one thing he made abundantly clear was he wouldn't do what Medusa did and take the title with him and throw it in the bin. He would want to leave the company on as good a terms as possible. He offered to drop the title to Ken Shamrock. He even offered to drop it to Brooklyn Brawler. Eventually was talked round to drop it to Shawn Michaels, but Shawn was Bret was adamant that this would not be happening on Canadian soil. He was a very, very proud Canadian, which meant that the Survivor Series was off the cards, that he would not lose the title at Survivor Series with it being in Montreal. And this is where the double cross starts to kind of take shape. So we had Triple H and Shawn Michaels having Vince's ear, saying, what are we going to do if he refuses to do business? You then have Jim Cornette kind of planting the seed that, Vince, this is your company. Just double cross him. It's your title. So yeah, then we get to the week of Survivor Series, and whilst Bret Hart was having his last WWF appearance on US soil, I think it was in Detroit. That was on the 8th of November. Vince, Shawn, Triple H, and the rest of Vince's team were already in Montreal. They were having production meetings about how the matches would go, and more specifically, how they would get that title out of the grasps of Bret Hart. Now, there is a lot of rumor and innuendo about who was in those meetings. A lot of the Hart family believe that JR was heavily involved. He's flat out denied being involved whatsoever. Pat Patterson was also accused of being involved, but according to Vince, JR and Pat were specifically excluded from those meetings because of their roles with the talent. I think JR was head of talent relations, and Pat Patterson was the chief road agent.
Yes, the agent. Yes.
So
he was the
having
agent for this match.
Yeah, I mean,
and Patterson apparently
we will get to that.
Yeah,
the finish. But Vince didn't want them involved, apparently, because of their close relationships with the wrestlers. He didn't want the wrestlers not feeling they could trust JR or not feeling that they couldn't trust Patterson. But everybody confirms that Gerald Briscoe was involved in the meeting because he taught Sean some defense moves in case Brett attacked him when the screw job happened. But Vince also stated that he wanted Shawn Michaels to act like he wasn't aware of it because he wanted all the blame to be put on Vince. He was willing to essentially carry the can. I presume, obviously, knowing what happens after that it was to start the genesis of the Mr. McMahon character, because obviously a couple of weeks after we get the whole Brett screw Brett, which starts off.
Well, on that, sorry, Maxie, just interrupt. No, on that, with the note of the Mr. McMahon character, they were talking. I say they, Cornette, Russo, and Pritchard. Apparently, when you listen to Russo, not so much Cornette, but you listen to Russo and Pritchard on their separate shows, they were saying to Vince, "Go out on television, be yourself. You'll be the biggest heel in the company." Mm-hmm. He genuinely didn't believe people would boo him. He thought people would like him, and so when he went and did the infamous Brett Screwed Brett promo or interview, he didn't believe, again, according to Russo and Pritchard, and I'm trying to quote as direct as I can here, but excuse me if I get a few words wrong. He didn't believe that people were going to view him as the villain. He believed that people were going to look at Brett in this scenario as the villain, and people would be like, good old Vince doing what's best for the company, and so on. That's what he took it as. And the Mr. McMahon character kind of stemmed from that when he started getting boos, and they ran with it. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like it was a happy accident in a way, because Vince didn't believe it was going to happen, I guess.
Well, happy for Vince and the company, not so much happy for the talent.
Well, no.
So let's go back to those meetings. The production meetings actually ended closing with actually no definitive finish. There was they couldn't figure out a way of getting the title from Brett without essentially Brett knowing what was going to go on. Obviously, you have pre-production meetings and you speak with agents about how the match is going to go, but the struggle was getting that finish. That there could be a point where the screw job could happen, and Brett would be none the wiser.
And this is again where Brett, you need to point out with Brett, this is where I think he wasn't helpful. And again, I'm going by what these people have said on their own podcasts and what has been written and so on. I've heard their voices recorded saying these things. I've got to take them at face value. Yeah, they are saying, and this does involve Cornette, this does involve Russo, and this does involve Pritchard. Three people who don't really get along. So I suppose you've got the three people saying the same thing. There must be some element of truth in there. They knew 10 days to 14 days roughly that he wasn't going to stay after Survivor Series. So they had 2 weeks to sort something out. And suggestions were thrown at Brett all the time. Mm-hmm. What about this? What about that? What about if you drop it to here? What about if you drop it to Sid here? And Sid was brought up a few times. What about if you drop it to Sean in this city? What about if you drop it this way? And all this sort of stuff. And Brett just constantly said, no, 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 no. And the big thing that all three of these people confirm that I think sometimes gets overlooked with regards to Bret Hart and how he's viewed as poor Brett in this scenario in some circles. He would just say no and offer nothing else. Yeah. It was very much a one-way conversation. He wasn't playing ball, so to speak. Yeah, so I think that contributes to him making a rod for his own back going into Survivor Series. I think if he wasn't willing to just open the dialogue, what options were left, really? I guess.
Yeah, and if you listen to the Bruce Pritchard podcast in particular, he always says that Vince is open to ideas. If you don't particularly agree with his idea or his view, then that's fine. But offer an alternative. Don't just say I don't agree with it
Yes.
and nothing. So I totally
what
see.
if, I think, is the phrase that Jim Ross says that is best to use, I guess, or is it Pritchard? One of them anyway. Sorry, mate.
Yeah. So you are perfectly astute in that point that Brett he wasn't playing ball, but then again, legally he didn't have to because he had that creative control. But you would have thought that he would have offered up alternatives, and he was very reticent, I suppose, in not wanting to be a part of this finish, no matter what. So we get to a couple of days before the match, or no, in fact, it was the day before, the night before, and the HBK and Brett are talking with Patterson, who was the renowned Finnish guy for WWF at the time.
Yeah.
And Patterson came up with an idea of a sharpshooter reversal, where Brett would be in the sharpshooter, Shawn Michaels cranking back on his legs, and he would sweep HBK, reverse the move, then let it go to wake up Earl Hebner, and that's when the rest of the Hart Foundation will come down. Shenanigans would happen, and we get the DQ finish that Vince was trying to placate Brett with. Brett would then still be champion at the end of the show, and he would relinquish the title the next night on Raw. But the point that Shawn Michaels focused on was that reversal of the sharpshooter. He went to Vince with that idea, said that is our get out. That's where the screw job will happen. Vince was 100% behind it. Briscoe was 100% behind it. Even Cornette apparently really liked the idea. So they let Brett think that the DQ was on, that he would reverse that sharpshooter, but really all the players were set in motion to screw him at that sharpshooter. Except for one player, Earl Hebner. Now,
he wasn't happy, was he?
Well, Earl had actually had a conversation with Brett a couple of weeks before, where Brett had heard rumblings that maybe get screwed. I think Vader told him at the time, "Don't stay on your back. Keep out of any moves where you could be submitted." I think a screw job is on. So taking that on board, Brett and Earl had a conversation, and Brett said, "Are you involved in a screw? Are you going to screw me?" And Earl said, "On my kid's life, I am going to call this down the middle. I am loyal to you, Brett. Absolutely loyal to you." But the night of the show, now depending on whose rumors you believe, Shawn Michaels said it was him that approached Earl Hebner and told him what was going to happen. Earl himself has said it was Vince McMahon who told him what was going to happen. But essentially, somebody told Earl that when Shawn Michaels locks in the sharpshooter, that's when you call for the bell. The match is over. Shawn leaves as the champion. Earl was essentially petrified because he made this promise to Brett, and now he was going to have to essentially renege on it to the point where he left the building the minute the match was over.
You can see when he calls for the bell. I mean, the image you've got behind us there, Max, is that moment, and he literally, as he's calling for the bell, he's going to the ropes to get out of the way, isn't he? He's off. He's on his bike.
According to the rumor and innuendo, his twin brother Dave was waiting outside the arena with a car, and they hightailed it.
All his gear was already packed up and in the boot of the car and stuff, wasn't it? Yeah.
But essentially, we're now at that point where we're at the match. So let's get into it.
Yeah, sure. As you said, Max, about 15 minutes or so of actual wrestling. But I call it actual wrestling. It was just a chaotic brawl for quite a lot of it, wasn't it? And it was good. It was really good.
I mean, Shawn was hated. Let's not beat around the bush. He was getting beer threw on him and spat at by the fans. A lot of fans.
Man. You look at the first of all the intros to the ring. I loved that, walking from the dressing room through the whole backstage area, following them. Shawn's music hitting, him walking out, and he's got the European title folded up almost. That's all tucked in a little bit under his arm, and he's chewing gum, and he just looks so smarmy and cocky. But it's brilliant, isn't it? He was such a good bastard.
And then he gets hold of a Canadian flag. And,
oh my goodness.
That's brave. That what he did. I'm surprised he left that arena still in one piece, because he essentially wipes his arse with the flag. He picks his nose with the flag. He even attempts to kind of put the flag down the front of his tarts.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? He had it down the front of his tights and did a sort of a funny little wiggle, and then took it back out again. It was, okay, mate.
He drew nuclear heat. Like, not even, I hate you because of the storyline. Like, that crowd wanted to kill him.
Mm-hmm. Which is brilliant. It's what he needs to do.
I mean,
he's doing his job.
Before even Brett comes to the ring, you see the front, say 4 or 5 rows on the hard cam side, just plow forward to the security rail, and there's about 3 security guards all trying to hold them back. And at any one time, 3 or 4 of those could have got over and just beat the living piss out of him.
Yeah, totally. Brett makes his entrance and is obviously widely cheered.
Mm-hmm.
And the match just starts with a scrap, doesn't it? It starts with a brawl, spills to the outside very quickly. The bell's not rang at this stage, and they're fighting all around the outside area, over the barrier into the crowd. And that bit's really crazy, isn't it? Because the fans are right there.
You see Matt Chioda, I think it's Jimmy Carderas as well, trying their best to hold these fans back to no avail. The fans there's no way those referees could have held them fans back. So it was brave that they actually went for that spot. And I have a feeling that they were maybe meant to go further into the crowd and maybe go around the arena a little bit, but I think it got so much of kind of like a powder keg that they quickly come back, especially the first time that they're into the crowd. Brett walks about, say, 10 yards and then thinks, this is a bit on top, and brings Sean back and essentially suplexes him back over the barricade.
Yeah, we got some big bumps on the concrete as well, don't we? The suplex, there's a backdrop, I think, as well. They look quite, obviously, you're dropping onto concrete floor. It's not going to be nice, is it?
And there's one kind of interesting thing that we haven't really mentioned. There's a lot of people around the ring.
Yes,
a lot of
that's what I was going to come to
normally
next.
Be around the ring. Sergeant Slaughter was there.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon wasn't there. Yeah. And this is a Vince McMahon who was lead announcer, lead commentary for all of the shows, apart from this one. He was just
stood at ringside, wasn't he?
Yeah. So
really strange.
Looking back in hindsight, with the way Jim Ross commentated at the beginning, just trying to tell how much of a blood feud this was and how you could expect the unexpected, and this is going to go ugly fast. It's interesting to realize just how much everybody knew about this, the way that they were talking, going back and watching it, knowing what happens in the aftermath. I believe people knew. I believe that that Jim and Jerry were at least aware of what was going on. Jim makes a lot of comments about Vince being around the ringside. Why would he be there?
He also comments a few times about the smart money is you'll never see Bret Hart in the WWF again and stuff like that, which I kind of, now you don't think nothing of it watching the match back, but I suppose you place yourself into 97 with what was going on, the Monday Night Wars, the dirt sheets, all this paranoia almost, and then you hear a comment like that I think would have had me thinking, well, okay, well, Jim Ross must know.
Yeah, and this was an era where the internet was burgeoning. People were more and more active in like bulletin boards and forums, and so you saw a lot of stuff in the crowd, like signs saying thanks for Brett, hope you have a good time in WCW, or Brett will join the NWO. Some not so good signs as well. One of them saying a very kind of a homophobic slur towards Shawn Michaels, which is it's horrific.
Referring to Shawn as an English term,
cigarette.
That is sometimes slang for a cigarette. Yes.
Yeah,
not good, but he got a lot of that. I'm not saying it's okay, but he got a lot of that, didn't he? Not just in Montreal, he got a lot of people calling him that sort of thing. Yeah. Basically, we end up with the wrestlers back in the ring eventually, after a figure four round the post by Brett on Sean, which I love that spot. Is, you know, when it's done right and the wrestler who's in the move doesn't necessarily have to hold on to the other wrestler's legs to make it work. I think it looks great, and Brett always does it so well. We also get a figure four in the ring, don't we? He's in the ring for quite a while in that one, isn't he?
Yeah, and we also get Brett essentially choking Shawn Michaels with the Quebec flag.
That's literally as the bell rings as well. That's what the thing. The bell rings, and then he starts choking him. So to me, there you go. That could have been the DQ finish right there. So,
and then there's another point where Sean grabs the Canadian flag that Brett brought out, snaps the flagpole, and essentially drives the flagpole into the throat of Bret Hart.
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of it up to the finish, isn't it? The mad brawling and chaos, and then we do get some wrestling, and Brett tends to be the one who's in control, I guess, for the majority of it. But out of that sort of 15 minutes of actual match time, the majority of it is a wild brawl with just this nuclear heat, isn't it, Mags?
Yeah, I mean, in the ring, there's very, very little, very basic wrestling. I think you see Sean does a top row double axe handle. Then he does a front face lock, which seems to last forever.
Yeah, that was a long time, wasn't it?
Yeah, so in terms of actual proper wrestling, there's not a lot, but that kind of makes sense because this was a blood feud. These two were here to put on a technically outstanding match. These were here to literally beat the living piss out of each other.
Yeah, definitely. And then we come to the moment that I think changed wrestling forever, really. Mm-hmm. It started the Mr. McMahon character. It kind of blew what little remnants that was left of kayfabe away, I guess. And the Mr. McMahon character obviously led to the rise of Austin, the Attitude Era, and I suppose in the long run, the death of WCW. So much stemmed from this moment. Okay, granted, there's lots of other things that happened in between this and those other dates, but you can trace pretty much everything back to this exact moment in November in '97.
It's very much a butterfly effect.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
This happens, and it leads to so many other things down the road. The rise of the Mr. McMahon character, the death of WCW, Brett eventually being injured to the point where he can't ever wrestle again. So yeah, so much huge changes in the wrestling business stem from this last 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, exactly. We end up with a ref bump.
So essentially, we get a Russian leg sweep, I think, from Brett. He does a snap suplex, goes to do something off the top rope. Sean pulls Earl into the way, which was meant to lead to the DQ finish that we spoke about, where we get the reversal of the sharpshooter.
Yes.
Brett then was meant to relinquish the sharpshooter, wake Earl up for the pin, which then leads to the Hart Foundation coming down, shenanigans, brawling, and DQ. But what actually happened was Sean pulls Earl in front of him. Earl goes down, all going to plan so far. Sean then puts the sharpshooter on.
And Earl gets better all of a sudden.
Earl magically rises from the dead.
Like an Italian footballer who hasn't won his free kick, he jumps to his feet.
Exactly. Does this maniacal kind of arm waving to almost kind of fake that Brett is telling him, I quit. Goes to ring for the bell. The bell doesn't ring because obviously the person, the timekeeper, is not in on the screw job. Vince, you can audibly hear him saying to the timekeeper, ring the bell, ring the fucking bell. So the bell gets rung. Sean puts on this fake kind of shock, I don't know what's going on bullshit. Vince and Gerald Briscoe tell him to grab the belt and get out of here. Sean's literally arguing with Gerald, and Gerald's pushing him out of the way. Brett realizes the con was on, sits in the ring despondent, stands up, just hocks up a massive snotty bogey.
What a loogie that was.
Spits it clean in Vince's face. Vince is actually fuming at that point. But Sean is being ushered out of the arena. Triple H and Gerald Briscoe are pushing him out. He doesn't get to celebrate. He essentially his celebration is just as he gets to the tunnel. He puts his arms up once with the title, and then we essentially fade to black.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after the show closes, Brett is fuming. The Hart Foundation are fuming. They all come down. They try to calm Brett down. He writes WCW in huge letters. Then he also tells the fans that he loves them, and he essentially we get what's really well detailed actually in Wrestling with Shadows. So if you haven't seen that documentary,
that's really, really good.
That unintentionally, I think, kind of catalogues everything that went on after the match went down.
Yeah, definitely. You get, obviously, everyone's aware that Vince gets hit by Brett because he has a black eye as well, and so and you can see him hobbling, can't you, in the corridor on Wrestling with Shadows.
But even leading up to that, there's more drama. Brett goes backstage, essentially has a talk with the whole of the locker room, saying, "If Vince can do this to me, he can do this to all of you."
You can hear Sean as well, can't you, saying, "This has nothing to do with me."
Yeah,
my hands are clean of this one, brother. I think is the term he used, maybe.
So the locker room leader, Undertaker, he's pissed off at what's happened, and a lot of the wrestlers are actually in Brett's corner because this wasn't the dumb thing in wrestling.
No, of course not.
So according to the stories, Undertaker went to Vince's office, who Vince had locked him, Gerald, I think there was
Jim Ross was in there by this point.
Sergeant Slaughter, Jim Ross, all in his office. Undertaker goes up to the door and says, "You need to come out. You need to apologize to Brett." So Vince comes out, brings his cronies with him. By this time, Brett's having a shower. Brett says, "If you're not gone by the time I finish this shower, I'm going to knock you out."
I love this because he literally, according to the stories, he literally goes back in and finishes his shower, comes back out and gets dressed very calmly and collectively. I mean, it's just class. Does his boots up, packs his stuff up, stands up, punches the guy. To have that control to finish your shower, get yourself dressed and everything first. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and not only that, apparently, according to stories, Vince also had a sprained ankle because of the punch. But other people
kind of fell over himself, didn't he, sort of thing?
Yeah,
apparently.
Other people said that it's because Gerald stood on Vince's foot whilst he was getting hit, which led to the sprain. But yeah, essentially, Shawn Michaels pretended he wasn't involved when he massively was. Vince took a punch on the chin. He then also was facing a mutiny with the rest of the locker room. So he went after Brett had left the arena. He spoke with the locker room and said Brett was going to go with the title.
Yeah,
he wasn't willing to do business. Whether that's true or whether that's false, we're probably never going to get to the root of the truth. Everyone's going to have their own kind of version of it. But to stave off a mutiny, which actually included Jim Neidhart and Bulldog leaving the company, Owen attempting to leave the company, but his contract was watertight, so he couldn't leave. Mick Foley quit the company.
For one day.
For 1 day, yeah. Apparently, according to Brett, he spoke with Mick and said, "That's career suicide. Do not come back to WCW." Which kind of taught Mick round. Rick Rude, who was actually in the part of DX, he left the company in disgust.
Yeah,
and that led
he rang
to
Bischoff from the arena in Montreal, didn't he? Apparently,
yeah. And Bischoff actually he mentioned it on the next night's Nitro and what had happened backstage, which if he didn't have Rude calling him, he wouldn't have known what had gone on. But Rude showed up on Raw, which had already been pre-taped, and he then showed up on Nitro on the very same night, clean shaven, which is I think is absolutely brilliant. But yeah, this a lot of people were quite rightly pissed off with how this went down from both sides, from both how Brett's attitude was. There's a lot of people who think he should have been more willing to drop the title, and then there's people who are in firmly in the camp of the screw job was absolutely not the right way to go. A lot of people have their opinions on it, and like I said, I don't think we're ever going to get any kind of definitive clarity about what went on and who knew what. It's always going to be in that kind of like rumor and innuendo bracket, I suppose, but it makes for very, very interesting research about just how grimy the world of wrestling actually is.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, I suppose if you want to talk in factual scenarios, I guess, with regards to people that knew, as far as I could make out, that we know knew. Obviously, Sean knew. Obviously, Triple H and Vince obviously knew. They were both aware. Gerald Briscoe had to know.
Yep.
And Earl knew. Those are the only guys who realistically we know for sure actually knew, because there's so many different contradicting stories. I mean, Cornette says he found out this, he found out that, and then you've got people saying, well, no, Cornette wasn't at that meeting. Russo says he suggested the idea. Of course he bloody did, bro.
Yeah, but then people Cornette have said he suggested the idea.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is something that in that 10-day period building up to the Survivor Series, when they were offering Brett all these different ideas and finishes, and Brett was just not being helpful, not playing ball at all. Apparently, I've made a list here of the names that I sort of, wherever we go. This is where the bits of paper get on my nerves, Magsy, because I want to find the right one. People suggesting to Vince, and this is other people corroborating, that these people did suggest this. Vince Russo, Bruce Pritchard, Triple H, Jim Cornette, Pat Patterson, all in front of other people who have witnesses to state that they suggested to Vince, if he won't do business, then we do business for him. Screw it. Vince always apparently responded with, no, we've got to find another way to do it. So all of those people in front of other people did suggest the screw job, but they were all, Russo, Pritchard, Triple H, Cornette, and Patterson, were all told, no, we're not doing that. Eventually it did happen, obviously. I suppose to summarize them, Magsy, because we've gone on a long time tonight, and I want to say thank you to everyone who's still in the chat and still with us, sticking with us through these two big topics. And it's really interesting conversation as well.
You could have easily watched the whole of the pay-per-view and be on the main event right now.
Yeah, exactly.
We massively appreciate you.
To summarize, Magsy, where do you stand before I give my thoughts? Where do you stand on what happened with Montreal, the screw job? Who was in the right, if anyone? Who was in the wrong, if anyone? Do you have any sort of final thoughts to sort of go along with it?
It's really hard to have a definitive opinion on it, because there's so much of it that is up in the air. Personally, I think there's not a lot of people in this who come out smelling of roses.
No, I agree.
In terms of the actual screw job, horrific way to do business, no doubt about it. Was it infamous? Are we still talking about it now? Has it give us loads and loads of content? Absolutely. But the way of screwing over such a servant to your company, especially when it was your doing and giving him a contract that you couldn't afford, that led to this kind of breakdown. The screw job is absolutely horrific. That being said, Brett could have done more, I suppose, in terms of playing the game, in terms of dropping the title.
Exactly.
I understand his issue with not wanting to drop it to Sean. Obviously, that had been a very personal and very kind of deep rivalry that they'd had for a number of years.
It was hatred, wasn't it? They despised each other.
Yeah, but he was offered other alternatives, dropping it to different wrestlers, dropping it in different places. I think him having this kind of deep-rooted opinion of not losing on Canadian soil was a little bit almost childish, I want to say.
I can go on that.
Because how many times do we see wrestlers now when they have a hometown match, they're the ones that usually put somebody else over. They're normally the ones that lose. And I think sometimes Brett believed so hard in the world of wrestling that he kind of mixed the kayfabe and the reality up to a point where he didn't know which was which. So in terms of who is in the wrong here, I think everybody is in the wrong to different degrees. For me, probably the worst in the wrong are the likes of Vince, the likes of Shawn Michaels, the very surreptitious attitudes of Triple H, who seemed very snaky at the time. Especially if you watch that Wrestling with Shadows documentary where he's swearing that he had nothing to do with it, when in reality he was one of the main kind of people who was pushing for the screw job.
Well, he was on that list of people I read out who suggested it.
Yeah, exactly.
People have said I was in the room. So
I think the least act wrong would be Brett. Because he didn't know what was going on in terms of the screw job, but he could have also played ball a little bit better in terms of dropping the title. So there's nobody in the right. It's just more matters of who is the most in the wrong, I suppose.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. I suppose sort of briefly, my last thoughts summarising the Montreal Screwjob in general. Brett and Sean both acted like a pair of dicks for a couple of years. I think if Brett and Sean weren't and they're both as bad as Sean was a piece of shit. I'm a huge Shawn Michaels fan. Everyone knows this, but Sean at this time was a piece of shit. He was difficult to work with. He was manipulative. He would politic his way around. He was a vile character. However, Brett didn't cover himself in glory either in the way he behaved. It takes two to have an argument. It's not just Shawn Michaels going at Brett. Brett was doing the same back. Brett caused issues by not getting the super kick in. Brett caused other problems as well that we've already covered in the big description we've given of the whole scenario build. And if you want to go back and listen to anything else, there's plenty of podcasts out there by the likes of Russo, Cornette, Jim Ross, Bruce Pritchard, all these guys that I think if you listen to all of them, the truth lies somewhere in the middle of the four, maybe, from the different viewpoints. But I think everyone, Magsy, I agree with you, everyone is at fault here. I think the biggest culprit is Vince McMahon, because if he was maybe a little bit more savvy with regards to the contract he was offering out, a little bit more savvy with regards to the timeline going towards the contract expiring, getting the belt off Brett before this even became a problem, this whole thing probably could have been avoided. Brett could have left without an issue because the championship wasn't on him. It's as simple as that. He didn't need to wait to get down to the last 2-3 weeks to suddenly realize, oh shit, I've got a problem. He could have had the belt off Brett at the beginning of October. Yeah, it's as simple as that. They are aware his contract was expiring in October.
Well, I think they had the meeting to discuss his contract on the 1st of November, which is that's the meeting where Vince confirmed that he couldn't afford Brett.
Okay. But then at the same time,
that leaves him 8 days to come up with something.
At the same time, why have you left it that late? Well, if you know this guy's contract is running out, even if you're not sure if you can afford it or not, why take the risk? Get the belt off him.
It's not that his contract was running out. He clearly had 19 years left on his contract.
No, that's what I mean. It was at that point,
where Vince knew he had to
do something. Yeah. Why not get the belt off him first, then go and speak to him?
Why put the belt on him in the first place?
Exactly. So I think Sean, I think Vince is the biggest culprit here, because he's made this scenario happen between two guys who.
And not only that, and I want to give a shout out to Eric Beeston from What Culture, who I've used quite a lot of his writings for the research that I've used. But But he did a really good write-up for this. I implore you to go out and look it up. Really goes more in depth than we've got in, and we've done an hour about this. But he essentially finishes his article kind of proportionate in blame, and he says essentially that history will treat Montreal as if it was about Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and their personal and professional rivalry, when in reality, this is all about Vince McMahon and how he failed as a leader, where he would allow wrestlers to use their stroke and their politicking, as well as playing one wrestler off another wrestler, telling one wrestler one thing, but then talking to another wrestler about another thing. As a leader of a company, he failed in his job to do the best for the workers. Ironically, it led to some of the most profitable wrestling that he's had. But yeah, essentially, this wasn't about Hart versus Michaels. This was about McMahon failing as the owner of a company.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Saying that Vince has the most blame on his head, I guess. He is the biggest culprit here in the build-up to this happening. But they got to a point where this happening was inevitable. Shawn is a piece of crap. We know that. As much as I love the guy, he's my favorite wrestler of all time. He was a piece of shit. He behaved in a disgusting way, which added to the tension, of course. But I think it's very easy here, and I don't want to come across like I'm picking on Bret Hart. That's not the case at all. Being screwed in this way is horrible. It's a terrible thing to have happened to anyone. However, this feeling some people have that Bret is a victim and not to be blamed, or has less blame on him than other people and so on, I don't get on with at all. I put Bret right in the mix of this as well. He had the opportunity to play ball. He had the opportunity. Yes, okay, he's got this creative control clause, but Bret cites about how the traditions of the wrestling business are so important to him. You do business on the way out. That's the way it's always been. That's the way it's always been. You do business on the way out. It's a really famous saying. So Bret should have done business on the way out. Not losing to Shawn in Canada when that was the plan all along. If he was going to stay, that was the initial plan, that he was going to lose to Shawn in Canada anyway. Again, I'm playing my creative control card. Where we heard that before, brother. And Bret's a huge critic of how Hogan politicked his way around in different scenarios.
Correct.
Bret is doing exactly the same thing as what he criticizes Hulk Hogan for. Also, a couple of little other bits that add up as well along the way. In 91, when Bret was the Intercontinental Champion, he was negotiating with Vince, with WCW. He was offered more money in 91 to go to WCW, but hadn't realized that his contract had automatically rolled on.
Correct. And
so he had to stay.
That's when we got he had 121 degree temperature and he lost to the mountain. That was because he had contract dealings with WCW, had agreed a contract with him, but then had to renege with WCW because his contract had renewed.
It hit a clause that made it roll on for another, I think it was another 18 months or 12 months, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah. So Vince essentially stripped him of the title, gave him some time to kind of like think it through, and eventually they had talks, and Vince promised that Bret was going to be the future of the company, and a year down the line he was the top dog. So Bret isn't the innocent kind of
no
the person who's always had wrong done to him.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Yeah, he's very much in that scenario in 91. He was going to leave. He was going to walk out, whether he was champion or not. That was his plan.
Well,
so
he was the champion.
Yeah, he was the
Intercontinental champion. Leave as champion. Yeah,
he has previous in this scenario, in virtually the same sort of scenario. Really, you also got to think as well about the whole Wrestling with Shadows scenario. Okay, that documentary is fantastic, and if you've not seen it, I completely agree with Magsy. Go and watch it; it's fantastic. Take it all with a pinch of salt because it is very much filmed from the behind Bret Hart's shoulder aspect, so it looks a certain way.
That's what it was meant to be. It was meant to be like almost like a documentary of Bret's a year in the life of Bret in the WWF. It was just more by luck than judgment that they caught what would have been the biggest incident of his
Yeah.
career.
They also, however, caught a private meeting between Vince and Brett, sitting down to have a one-to-one chat privately. Everyone else was told to leave. All the agents, even Patterson wasn't allowed in the room. Everyone was told to get out. Brett wore a wire and recorded that private conversation. So let's be clear here. Bret Hart is far from a victim or Mr. Innocent here. Bret Hart made a rod for his own back. Bret Hart proved in the past he probably wasn't trustworthy. So saying I'm going to turn up on Raw with the championship and vacate it. Vince created this scenario. Shawn's behavior added the spice by being a dick. And I think Bret's own past actions made him untrustworthy. Yeah, and that's kind of, I think, where we get to with Montreal, Mags.
And not only Bret's actions, the actions of other wrestlers who had left the company on bad terms. The Medusa stuff, for instance, where a WWF title was on the enemy's show and thrown in the bin. The last thing, I mean, women's wrestling was in the toilet back then anyway. So even though that was massively controversial, it would have been infinitely worse if it was the top belt from the WWF being thrown away on Nitro. It would have been horrific.
What a moment that would have been, though.
Yeah. And at that time, Bischoff would have been all about that.
I mean, now Bischoff says he wouldn't have done it because he's already been sued once. But I don't believe him, mate. I don't believe him. Anyway,
he would have done that.
Magsy, we gotta go. It's 2 hours 40 minutes into the show, my friend. My wife probably wants to come to bed. This is where she sleeps right behind me. So very quickly, we need to rate the match itself out of 10 and then give our links for next week, bud.
Okay. So the way we do it is we rate the match and not necessarily all the shenanigans around it. So in terms of a wrestling match, this is not bad, but it's not brilliant. No. It's very, very basic. It's a brawl, essentially. So if you're taking that match in its singularity, a 6, maybe I'd go with.
Yeah, I think I'm roughly the same. I think I wrote 6. I wrote 6.5 to 7. So I think 6.5 is probably a fair thing there. So not the best, but still entertaining enough. There's enough there for you to not just skip to the finish if you watch it back, I guess is the best way of looking at it. It's not it's not Okada Omega, but there's enough there, Mags, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
So where do you want to go next week?
Well, I'm actually interested in keeping this trainer rolling, going to see what happens further on down the line. So after this match, I think Shawn defends the title at D-Generation X, the pay-per-view. Yes. Is that against Ken Shamrock, I believe?
Yeah, that's right.
But the next kind of major storyline is the passing the torch on to someone who will become the face of the company for the next few years. That's Stone Cold Steve Austin. And he had a kind of rising prominence all the way through the end of 96, all the way through 1997. But it was really in 1998 where he became the huge star. And it started with him winning the 1998 Royal Rumble. So I actually want to go to that. I want to go to watch the 1998 Royal Rumble where Austin wins the match and eventually will go on to WrestleMania 14 to dethrone Shawn Michaels and end this reign of tyranny.
See, that's funny because I've put a Rumble up on the options before, and my main thought was, how brilliant is that going to be going the week after with so many different ways, you can 30 different blokes and different and that's a great Rumble as well. I really, because Austin's just an absolute star at this time, isn't
he? He's just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Okay, I mean, very quickly before I get to mine, my wife there in the chat saying I do, as in she wants to go to bed. Sharon, I'm really sorry that we've gone on long. Love you to bits. Really, really, really appreciate you tolerating Mags and I talking about fake fighting in your bedroom for so long.
You are a star. We appreciate you.
With this show, well, we say it all the time, this show wouldn't happen without my wife's kicking me up the arse and helping me this side of the screen. So my link It's probably the proudest link I've ever done, Max, the one I'm most proud of because of how I've got to the match that I wanted to get to.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Convoluted.
Right. But it all does make sense. I had a conversation online with various people, yourself included, about Lex Luger and saying Lex Luger at one stage did have good wrestling matches, 88, 89, couple in 87. He had some good wrestling matches. And I also had a conversation and got called old in the Radio Tekkers chat group for liking Barry Windham or being a bit of a Windham fan. So what I would like to do is the link of D-Generation X, ravishing Rick Rude. Rick Rude, as discussed on Bang Bang podcast this week, Rick Rude wrestled at Clash of the Champions 21 and had Hiro Matsuda ringside as a judge in a match there. Okay, I'm going to take that of Matsuda being ringside and say Matsuda was also ringside at the Chi Town Rumble event in 1989, where Lex Luger wrestled Barry Windham. And that's my link. Rick Rude, Clash 21, Hiro Matsuda ringside at Chi Town Rumble, Lex Luger versus Barry Windham. It got loads of stars. It was really looked at as, at the time, Luger's best in-ring performance, and 89 is probably just past his peak Barry Windham, but great Barry Windham. And I want to watch some good wrestling. Luger Windham, Chi Town Rumble 89.
So tune in next week for when we cover the 1998 Royal Rumble.
Yes.
Then.
Yep, no one's voting for Luger. Give it a go. Honestly, wrestling didn't start in 1997. Okay, people? It's right, Magsy. I suppose we need to get out of here, my friend. So, I'll very quickly run through the options again. Apologies, my bad. Your options are Lex Luger versus Barry Windham, Chi Town Rumble 1989. Dan Griffin definitely voting for the Rumble. There we go. Look at this. It's good Luger, but most importantly, it's great Barry Windham. That's the main thing. The Royal Rumble 1998 or Luger versus Windham 1989. Those are your options. Losing. I'm getting slaughtered in the chat. Can I change? Have we got time for me to change?
he now picks the 1997 Rumble.
Yeah, 97 Rumble. No, that's it. Those are your options. The poll will be up on Twitter. Sort of when the audio podcast comes out, middle of the week sort of time-ish. Look out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so on. Magsy, where can everybody find you?
So you can find me down here at Podfather Mags. And in terms of content, I'm all over the shop, heavily involved here on Radio Tekkers with the football and UFC. So definitely give us a sub and click the notification bell. In terms of other stuff, I do a Change in Attitude, which is over on the Chair Shot. And I alluded to a little announcement regarding our Kent-based Buddy Scottish Danny. So Tanner is taking a little bit of a break away from Change Attitude. He's got some real life issues going on in terms of like moving and jobs and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's unfair for him to be able to dedicate the time for recording. So we've drafted in a couple of people to help kind of steer the ship in his absence, and Scottish Danny is one of them, and he'll be on an episode in the next couple of weeks where we're talking about the 1996 Survivor Series. That'll be his debut on the Change Attitude podcast, so listen out for that.
That's a great event as well.
We're also doing a live watch along of it this Sunday on Radio Tekkers, and then obviously we'll be speaking to Danny post fact and getting his views and opinions on the show as well. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, that's going to be great. Really looking forward to that. Okay, you can find my stuff as well. SJP is part of Radio Tekkers. The Waiting Room Quantum Leap podcast I do with Benny Mack is part of Radio Tekkers. Thanks, mate. I appreciate that.
That really needs way more love because it's done great numbers. Don't get me wrong, in terms of people listening, it's absolutely hitting out of the park, but it deserves way, way more. You two have great chemistry, and it's such a good subject as well. So definitely go and check out The Waiting Room.
No, I appreciate that, mate. Thank you. Yeah, you can find all of that via at Radio Tekkers, or you can follow me where there's links to all my stuff at SJP Words. But most importantly, you can follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, that TikTok thingamy, and most importantly, Twitter at chain_wrestling. This has been the longest episode of Chain Wrestling so far. It has been a mammoth discussion about what makes you angry and the Montreal Screwjob. I have had a bloody fantastic time. Thank you so much to everyone who got involved on Twitter, in the chat. Magsy, thank you so much again, mate, because I always enjoy just talking wrestling with you, bud.
Oh, thank you very much. And again, I have to reiterate what you said. This show would be nothing without the people in the chat, the people on Twitter, the people on Facebook who really helped make this show what it is. We know it's been a long one, and we appreciate you all sticking around and being involved. Apologies again to Sharon. You can go to bed in the next couple of minutes. But yeah, thank you all. We absolutely adore you.
We do indeed. We do indeed. And Dan Griffin, lastly in the chat, says, you haven't explained the episode title, and we're not going to. Keep you guessing. I am now off to get a picture of Donna Summer and a picture of Rod Stewart and spend the rest of the evening wondering how I got those two people confused earlier. Magsy, I'll speak to you next week, my friend.
Bye-bye. And I forgot the button for the outro. Here we go.